this Oval Office.
So wait, it was about whether or not Asians are nearsighted or farsighted, or to start from there. Where
Does
were we at?
nearsightedness and farsightedness vary by population like that? I mean,
exactly. So what we're thinking, maybe like there's almost a caste system thing, because there are a lot of nearsighted Asians, but it might be a relatively new phenomenon that has to do with their parents being nearsighted, and so they want to be like their parents, and that their parents were nearsighted because they were book smart, and that their book smart parents were because they didn't want them to be, soldiers or working in the fields or something like that. And so farsighted has more to do with like seeing eagles and tracking things.
well, being nearsighted only recently was not a major disadvantage. It literally removed the usefulness of people from like the population after a certain age, until glasses were invented. I think like 500 or 600 years ago.
Well,
When
I
like,
also
corrective
think
lenses really got popular and actually functional.
you also got like Asians growing up, like from in their formative years, being forced to stick their nose in a book and like constantly being nearsighted. So it could have just developed like that from condition. And then you have like farmer Asians, like rural Asians, who just, I guess, deal with different shit, so they don't really develop that.
That's the
exercising
thing, I
muscles
think.
in your eye doesn't cause nearsightedness. It actually helps fight against it.
So what causes it?
Maybe it's genetic.
If the lens becomes stiff, which it's genetic, and the muscles can no longer pull on it to change its shape effectively.
So how do you have people evolving then to be nearsighted? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, it's no longer a disadvantage, so it's not selected against it anymore in the population.
Like, like seeing a guy with terrible eyesight isn't going to stop you from making babies with him if you like him enough, But
maybe 7 or 800 years ago, it would have.
Yeah, or they would be dead.
Well, that's the question. Like 700 or 800 years ago, that probably wouldn't have happened. But then, if that wouldn't have happened, why did it spread 500 years ago? It had to prolong itself to that certain point. So it seems like there must have been a point where people were useful by looking right in front of their faces.
No, given having sharp eyesight is something that's honed toward by evolution. If poor eyesight is selected against,
well,
but
you
if
don't
there's
need
no selection bias anymore, then the point will just widen. Hold on, my air circulator just kicked on. Let me kill that noise.
Well, let's look at fucking the Industrial Revolution, like post-Industrial Revolution. I guess you don't like have to have like far eyesight to like work in a fucking factory just pushing a button all day or like putting together components. So maybe like, I think that's not just Asians too. That's probably for like everyone, right?
But also you're saying like rural Asians or rural people generally, they don't have the same prerequisites to exist. Well, just in general, like if you live in a city, you're more likely to. I mean, it seems like the city is where nearsightedness comes from. I could be wrong, but like in urban environments, especially industrialism, it seems like in the industrial age, particularly like threading needles for textiles or something like that.
Also,
I can see where it's valuable to see right in front of your face if you're looking at something like that.
Yeah, and you go outside and there's not much to look at past like 100 yards except for a fucking like wall, right? A concrete building or something.
That might be also an interesting thing, is that you can keep people from seeing what's really going on. They're stuck in their own little hubris and they don't have any idea what's going on like 100 meters away from them. So you can their whole world's outside of their realm of understanding.
Yeah, old school racists called them urbanites with a Z. I'm an urbanite though, so it's all good.
Yeah, I mean,
against people just for living in cities.
Genghis Khan, right? Didn't Genghis Khan just like burn down cities? He was just like that was his medicine for people, right? Was just to burn down.
It's like your city
walk outside. Walk outside. You surrender? Good. Walk outside. And then they burn it down. It's like, now you can live in nature. You're welcome.
Now you're free.
You're free. You're welcome. We liberated you from your urbanite plague. Yeah.
I've heard people describe cities as prisons before, and I really disagree because you can't wander out of a prison. But it really seems to be more like an amusement park lately. Like, have you been to like any major cities like Central District, like Times Square or anything like that? It really reminds me of like a theme park. Like, everything is very expensive, even though it's something basic like eating food or drinking water. Like, it's gonna be like $4 for a bottle.
Yeah, it didn't used to be like that.
But it's a place where people live. It originally first hit me when I was standing in the middle of Universal in Los Angeles, and I was just like, wow, this is what they want cities to become. They want everybody just to be so distracted by these bread and circus, and to have everything just be so expensive, and literally everyone just to be working for the environment that's directly around them, even if it's only pushing a broom, because it keeps them busy and it stops them from revolting.
You said that's like all of Seoul. You just described like Seoul, South Korea. The entire city is basically like that.
That's weird to me, because
would you rather live in a prison or an amusement park? Well, at least in a prison, they're genuine about what it is.
But I used to go to like San Francisco 20 years ago. It was cheaper in a city. You went to a city. A city meant that there were more resources there coming and going. It's a port, really. And so there's people trading all the time. And so food would be like constantly there, like 4 times cheaper, a quarter of the price. If you go to some nice suburban place that's far outside of the city where rich people live, that's where it would be expensive a lot of the time, is in these nice suburban McMansion areas, where it's now not like that. It's actually become cheaper because that's where less resources are going to get sold. So they're trying to bring down their prices because people aren't buying them as much. But in the city, it's like, yeah, you don't have to be here. So they've raised the prices on everything. It's actually inverted the idea of the city. It used to be you went to the city because it was cheaper and easier to live there than if you were to live in nature, I think.
Yeah, I saw an apartment for rent near Wall Street, and it was listed as $3,000, and I was like, there's absolutely no way, that has to be a misprint. And then I looked at it, and it was $3,000 a night, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, that's literally a hotel being sold as an apartment. This is insane, because it was literally for like, if you were a stock trader who needed to be in town for like 90 days or something like that. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. And I'm like, this is not a place where people who
live,
like do things live. It's just where somebody who goes to push a pencil around for 10 minutes and then fucks off all day. Like,
well, all the serious people who I've ever met that worked around the Wall Street area, like downtown by the seaport, what they do is they do some dickheaded shit. Like they live all the way out in like by Westchester or like one of those really Jewish like upstate areas, or like Long Island or something. And then every morning they straight up tell me, it's like, yo, I took a helicopter to work. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, they have like Uber for helicopters. You just go up to the place in like port in Long Island or upstate, and then they just fly you over in like less than 20 minutes or something. I knew a bunch
of guys who rented. There was 5 of them, and they all kicked in $2,000 a month each to rent a 4-bedroom apartment. One of them slept on the couch across the street from Trump Tower on Wall Street. It was the most ridiculous thing ever. I was like, I would literally just rather live by myself, like half an hour away by train than live with 4 roommates. That's insane. Like, so you can like roll out of bed and walk into work 10 minutes later, like, big deal. I'd rather be 45 minutes late.
Well, you know what? Speaking of rich, I would say, like, you know how like there's a difference between old money and new money. I think like new money shouldn't go for like fucking like extravagant mansions. That's like old money shit. If you're new money, you're better off just like going from lease to lease, because like what are you gonna do? You're just gonna like have a house that that you're probably not gonna be around that often, unless it's like
Ash Wednesday. I just realized. Yeah, happy Ash Wednesday, everybody.
Happy Ash Wednesday. Is it happy or solemn? I forget.
Just a stoic Wednesday, but just got a little ash on my face there. I don't know if it even stays, but there you go. Little hemp beeline ash. All right, cool.
It's a Catholic thing, right?
Yeah, it's a Catholic thing. Pope Francis is gonna die. You heard about that?
Oh, no, I heard about that. Yeah.
Oh no, or yeah. To be honest, some of you Protestants probably don't even care. Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to celebrate death of anybody, no matter, unless like.
What if it's Jesus? I got you there.
Jesus can't die.
He can, and he comes back. That's the whole.
Wait, what if he wanted to?
Yeah, if he doesn't die, then that actually takes away from the whole coming back from the dead thing. So yeah, you have to celebrate his death, I think, which is weird and insufferable,
morbid.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's more about like what he did it for than the fact that it happened.
I think it's just impressive, really. You come back from the dead, anybody's going to think you're pretty cool. But like with Pope Francis, you got a half of the group like him because he's a peace symbol. He's like Francis is, he's Franciscan and all that. But the other half of it, he's from Argentina and was involved with the helicoptering of people by Pinochet, the removal of anti-communists and all this, and the redistribution of children from these people that were, a lot of these people were killed and they were thrown out of helicopters, but their kids were given away to members of the state. So if you were, you find out, I met some people in Argentina and they found out like around 20, 25 years old that they had been, that their parents weren't their parents. They'd been essentially, their parents were communists. They'd been arrested. They weren't pro-state. And so they've been redistributed as babies to better parents that the state had approved of. And with the help of the Catholic Church, with the help of Francis before he was the Pope.
That sounds like a plot to a Far Cry game.
Yeah, it's like crazy in Argentina, man. So it's hard to be like, oh yeah.
Wasn't that game about like were-monkeys or something? Because I remember they made like something that was like an enemy that looked like a pig monkey thing that attacked you.
Yeah, Far Cry. I mean, this is just my feelings on Ubisoft in general as a company. I think they're like a psyop. I think they are some kind of like affiliate for like some deep state media psyop because they're heavily affiliated with Tom Clancy, who I also think is like a federal agent of some propaganda machine of some sort.
If he wasn't, he's got to be one now, right? Like I think they arrested him that one time for having, what was the book that he did? Was it Some of All Fears or was it the Ghost? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. He got in trouble for one of those books because they said like they thought that it was too accurate to information that was too sensitive. And so
I think it was like Hunt for Red October, maybe.
Was he actually a serviceman?
He wanted to be.
Yeah.
But he got rejected. And so like, but then his books were so detailed and like so on point with military terminology that like he met the president. And the president was even like actively started endorsing his shit, which makes me think it's like this guy's definitely a fucking like he's like a Fed or something, he's
a output. So actually, if you're not allowed to write your memoirs because you're not allowed to portray, you can, even if you have freedom of speech, if you work for the corporation, for the company, you can't. If you work for the company, you can't tell people what's going on.
I mean, he could just be a covert propagandist being paid.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. I don't think
that would be probably something that they did after they noticed his talent. You know what I mean? Like I guarantee you that they have scouts that like probably go out and like how they have like college football guys looking at high school games.
Yeah, it's like, can you make movies? Like, do you want to serve your country?
Yeah, like if somebody like bubbles to the top, it's like, hey man, you're a good writer. Maybe you should come meet some people that I know.
Yeah, I think so. I think Stan Lee was like that too, actually. Like when he was making comics, I definitely
or even if they just become like business magnates after a while, it's like, wow, okay, your megaphone reaches this many millions of people. We would like to partner with you to put this message out, and it's really not even subtle anymore. It's all over the place. Like have you ever played Sonic Adventure 2? The way Sonic and the government interact initially is that they mistake Sonic for Shadow or vice versa and arrest him because of something. I forget exactly how the whole thing started, but yeah, there was an arrest, which isn't totally implausible, seeing as that Sonic transformed into something that exact shape at the end of the previous game. So everybody just thinks that Sonic the Shadow is just another Dark Super Sonic or something. Anyway, so he escapes from being arrested. But if you watch the movie, the way they tell the story is that all of a sudden something goes on and the government calls up Sonic's G-Man buddy to call him to come help. And it's not exactly how it works, but whenever they make a movie, whenever they put something in mass media and they make a change that fundamental to a character where they have to, it's like, how many cop shows were there where it's like, oh, there's this supernatural character, like a superhero or the devil, and he's like somehow present in normal people Earth, but he's sitting in a police station helping the cops figure something out.
Yeah, he needs a federal chaperone.
Fucking shows. Like they literally made a show about the devil where he literally spends half the show in a police station every episode just helping the cops solve mysteries.
Yo, the most prescient example of what you just described was in the first Black Panther movie, when you realize like this is just a movie about a neoconservative monarch teaming up with a white CIA agent to destroy an allegory for the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was like, this is actually brilliant because it's one of those movies that would appeal to.
I didn't see it.
All right, so basically like one like lost son of Wakanda like goes against Wakanda, and basically his beef is like, you just let all the Black people of America get enslaved, get oppressed. Meanwhile, you sit here in your ivory tower with your advanced technology that could have liberated our people.
Your Afro-Zionism, yeah.
And these are the bad guys. Like these are the bad guys.
Literally an ivory tower. They have elephants there, right?
They have
Ebony Tower.
They have vibranium or something. But yeah, it was crazy because like you had like liberals like cheering for this movie just because of aesthetics, and I'm like, this is the kind of movie that appeals to both like a really smart racist and a really stupid liberal. Like they would both watch this and they'd be like, this is fucking brilliant. I love it.
So wait, like the idea is that everybody, all the black people in America were like originally from Wakanda, and Wakanda wasn't helping them?
No. Wakanda was Wakanda was always isolated from the whole dynamic because they were hidden thanks to their advanced vibranium technology. So they were never. But
really. Do they relate to the rest of the people in the world, or are they totally a separate population?
Totally isolated, kept secret. In fact.
Yeah.
So the idea was like the lost son of Wakanda who served in the military, who went through like racism, like systematic racism. After he finishes his shit, he's like, you know what? I'm going to destroy Wakanda, take those weapons and liberate the black people by, I don't know, going to war against white people. Like that's what it was reduced to.
Was that the good guy or the bad guy?
Bad guy. That's the bad guy. Okay. And the good guy slaughters him, like just ruthlessly skewers him. I was like, this is kind of
dies of cancer.
Yeah. I was like, this is a little
It was also weird because the idea that Wakanda decided what revolutions happen based on violence, which was really funny to me. So it was like, you know, the societies supposedly lasted for thousands of generations, and yet all it took was like one rage battle. That there's no like there's no democratic process to protect or sustain this kingdom. It literally comes down to this Pride Rock Simba versus Scar crap, where they have to, you know, which is not a good way to like keep your government stable. It doesn't really make any sense.
I mean, that's probably like an allegory for like two guys who have an army fighting each other. I bet. I think like you can't really decide a nation based on one fist fight.
I think the idea was.
Although I think it would be amazing if Trump got Zelensky and Putin at gunpoint in Washington and just forced
them do an arm wrestle,
settle things in a pay-per-view boxing match.
That would be awesome to watch Putin destroy Zelensky. Yeah.
We don't need Ukrainian peasants or Russian peasants to be dying for their leaders, either one. And you know what? Yeah, it was an invasion by Russia into Ukraine. But you know what? Let the two guys at the top fight it out. I don't even want the guys directly below them to be losing teeth or fingers over it.
I think it's funny now because they're psychologically they're processing people with the idea that Putin's going to win. They're like, well, you know, he's an asshole, but you can't call him that because that won't help us end the war. So you have to just, you know, yeah, he's a bad guy and it's all his fault, but you know, like you just have to not say that anymore. And I feel like I'm going to upset all my Ukrainian friends. I have a lot of Ukrainian friends, and I wanted to have our friend Vladimir back on the show, who's a Ukrainian we did an interview with him a year or two ago. I asked him, he would have been down, but he said he's been drafted. It's like, bro, you're like 5'2" and you're nearsighted. Back to nearsightedness, by the way, because I was thinking about Tom Clancy, and he's myopic as well. He's nearsighted, obviously. I mean, look at that. So something about nearsighted people. But I was like, what are you going to do for the Ukrainian army? And he's like, I don't know, die, I guess, you know? So it's like, it's hard. I mean, yeah, because Slavs are like that, but it's a bummer because is it true what we're saying? And do we have to pretend that we all agree? Because I don't know. I mean, the other side of it, right? The Ukrainian side of it is that Ukraine's a real country. And the Russian side of it is that Ukraine is just an excuse because it used to be part of the Soviet Union, and the Ukrainian history is so far removed from the Ukrainian state, and that the Ukrainian ideology and culture is synthetic and new, and half or more of the Ukraine, I mean, Ukraine's made up of a bunch of different kinds of people. You have the Polachks, the Jews, the Tartars, the Crimeans. You have Ukrainian nationals, and it's a port. You've got Turks even technically, and you have Russians, and half of Ukraine are Russians, including Zelensky, who only learned how to speak Ukrainian kind of in the last 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. For the most part, they're all so. The Russian excuse is that they're tired of seeing the Russian citizens in Ukraine exploited, oppressed, murdered, replaced by the Ukrainian state. However, there's Russian Ukrainians who don't want to have anything to do with Putin. So Ukraine became kind of an excuse to exist outside of Russia. You could be Russian outside of Russia. It's like kind of the loophole.
Like Taiwan.
Yeah. So I mean, the argument, I think that's really what it is Ukraine, or is Ukraine the Russian Taiwan? And I think either way, it's important, right? But it's important to think about it that way, that Russians live there.
Like it's really, I mean,
They're not looking for Kiev. It's not that
because-
Russia wants Kiev. They just want the Russian cities in Ukraine to be Russian and protected by Russia. Right?
Yeah.
They didn't ever say that they wanted to conquer Kiev. You know?
No, I think that they were worried about some things that were happening on the Ukrainian border during like between 2020 and 2022.
Even before that, 2014 on, because Ukraine's crazy. Like, I mean, you got paramilitary groups that pretend to be, and they're gangs.
Yeah, they're not even government.
Yeah, they're just gangs. You have gangs of people with army surplus equipment that they have through cartels and military.
Yeah, but to be fair, a lot of those gangs are older than some of those political regimes that were just like propped up post-Soviet fall. So, you know, like they might be there for a very good reason. Maybe a lot of these entities wouldn't even be in power if it wasn't for those like criminal elements.
From a pragmatic perspective, regardless of what led up to the current moment, I really question whether or not after this long can Ukraine, you know, maybe that last wave of conscripts will be exactly what they need, or the next one, I should say. But I'm not sure if they can actually win it alone. So the rest of the world really needs to decide whether or not it's worth risking World War III over sending their own troops in.
I think, though, you also got, I mean, I've been looking at all these videos. I know a lot of Ukrainian girls, and it's just like Ukraine's filled with hot chicks dancing. So you got all the men are dead, and you're going to have a bunch of war brides. That's basically what's going to be left of the Ukraine. So is this just so that like Israel can have a bunch of Ukrainian girls, or why are they murdering all of the able-bodied men in the entire country?
Yo, I have a question for you guys on the subject.
Well, that's just kind of like a result of what's going on. The fact that
is it though? Is it though?
Yo, because Sean, you live in New York too.
On people.
So I want to ask you guys. Do you both have any? I know you have Ukrainian friends or like a bunch of different Slavic friends, but how many Russian friends do you have? Because like I just met my first Russian person in a long time. Like he just walked into the dojo and he started like taking classes.
You live in New York. You probably just don't realize you're meeting Russians all the time.
I mean, I thought about that. A lot of my Russian speaking friends, most of them are like Moldovan, Ukrainian, something, you know.
I know plenty of Russians, but that's because I know their last name. You know, if I didn't know their last name,
well, how do they feel about it? Are they like we side with Ukraine, we side with Russia, we side with America? Like, what are they? Because the Russian I met,
people don't want there to be a war. That's pretty much it. It's not really about saying who's right.
Yeah,
or
but
wrong.
let's say not having a war is off the table, and we really have to choose between World War III or.
I think the way the war is being fought is wrong. I think that instead of targeting the peasants on either side, like Zelensky should just target Putin directly, take him out. And people say like, no, that would cause a power vacuum, but a hypothetical threat is always less urgent than an actual threat. So honestly, if they can reach Putin, then they can reach his successor.
Well, my question is,
how many Putins have there been? How many people do you think have been Putin?
I don't care. I don't care.
This idea that Putin is a single person.
Take out the leadership instead of the regular people at the bottom.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this is nonsense to pretend that Putin is a real person. Putin is an enigma that's been created and replaced probably 3 or 4 times.
Okay, airstrike the body doubles. Again, go after the top of the top. No, hit their Congress when they're about to make their budget.
Bro, you bring up a good question. Like, why doesn't Zelensky just take out Putin? Well, why doesn't Putin just take out Zelensky?
You legit think this is the same guy?
Yeah, exactly.
You really think this is one person?
I don't care. I don't care about the logistics.
Like, that's not real, bro. Like, Russia's brilliant. They've created a Putin because they needed something, but I don't think it's the same guy. That's like the point.
It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. I just like blow him apart. Put his legs 5 miles from his wrists.
It's a very Ubisoft America.
But the point of war was never to take out the other side's leader in like a geopolitical sense. The point of war was
America does it.
It's a form of negotiation.
America does it all the fucking time. Look, they hung Saddam, and they put somebody else's name on the act.
Yeah, but if they're a leader of a third world country, I think the rules are a little different for these people.
It's a third world country. The fuck? What? Their fucking GDP is the size of Ohio. What the fuck?
Well, I wouldn't know. I've never been to Russia. So, have you been to Russia?
No.
I want to go to Russia.
Go to fucking frozen wasteland. I've been to Alaska. It's close enough to being to Russia.
No, because Andreas did that before. He was talking about Russia. He was talking about Russia.
Wait, if I've been to Alaska and that used to be Russia, does that count as going to Russia? There are a lot of Russians there. It's not that weird. It's just you don't expect to see Russians and Inuits like right next to each other, like that meshed, especially when you're so used to seeing Native Americans in Long Island all the time.
Did you know that in northwestern Native Americans have been known to like adorn their wooden they had weird armor, like wacky stuff, and they adorned it with like Chinese coins they found like near the Berings, where the Bering Strait was, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, I thought that was like fascinating.
Absolutely. Because people think about like the Inuits as Native Americans, but it's actually like a pan-Arctic culture that goes throughout Russia, Norway, and all sorts, like Iceland, Greenland. Like it's not just uniquely American like the Aztecs and the Olmecs all are, and the Algonquins. Inuit it's a whole big thing. And if you look, there are people from Norway who call themselves like Norwegian, but they look just like what Americans would call an Eskimo.
What we got to do is we got to do an Xirtus tour through like the entire Eastern Bloc, through the Balkans. We got to go through all like the fucked up countries. We got to go to China, Russia. I mean, I hear they're nice. I hear they're
countries. Which ones are those?
No, in Romania and like Albania. I heard they're nice too, though. You know, you could go there with like $100 and live like a king.
I have some Albanian friends when they say it's great living in America.
Oh yeah, that too. I think it's good to go and visit with American money, because then like people will just they'll hook you up.
Yeah, I've heard about that, because they love getting their hands on an American dollar, because they know if they hold on to it for a couple of weeks, it'll be worth more than it is today.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend, my Moldovan friend said he visited his home country and he was like, yo, we spent like not much money and we had a really good time. I was like, I bet. I mean, there's a reason why that's like, if rich people, like Chinese rich people, if they want to buy wives, like a mail order white wife, they always go through like the Eastern European countries. It's fucked up. It's like basically human trafficking. But for a lot of those people, like Andreas was saying with war brides, like sometimes their only option to live a somewhat decent lifestyle is to just like get married off to like some rich Chinese tech bro or something. And I don't know.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you have like the willpower to like live through that, it's like, fuck it, you know, like props. But I guess personally, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, no, there's nothing like the genuine lust of a woman. Absent that, I could never have a relationship. There's literally no feelings to look at a woman's eyes and like see a real fire. And I know a lot of people might not ever experience that. And my advice is hit the gym.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree. I mean, I think like if wait, you're talking about like love, right? Like the romantic loving connection. I think that's almost like pathological. Like you'd have to be really fucked up to never experience that. Like unless you die like really early.
No, I was talking about lust.
Oh, lust,
like genuine, like just a burning desire. Like, yes, love and trust too, of course, is very important and totally essential for a real relationship. Absent trust, you couldn't even have a friends with benefits thing, honestly.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. I always say, don't sleep with women you wouldn't be friends with.
That's a good one. Or there's also the camper's rule, like leave it better than you found it. That's for everyone, actually.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Take only pictures, leave only footprints.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
But no, like they take only pictures, leave only footprints thing leaves out the fact that if you find a piece of trash, you probably should bring it out with you.
Yeah. I guess that's also
that doesn't apply to other people's emotional baggage though.
Yeah. I guess that's also another thing. If you were to like visit these countries as like a single person or as a couple, you're gonna end up doing like different activities, I guess, at different times.
Yeah, but the last thing I would ever want is a woman pretending to lust or love me for economic reasons. That would just feel duped, deceived, tricked.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue though, like maybe in some ways that like something like an arranged marriage will work better over time. Like it's like comparing like
Are you talking about government issued GFs?
No, I'm talking about like hot soup that goes cold over time versus cold soup that gets hot over time.
What?
No, like an arranged.
Lukewarm?
What do you mean? No, I mean it's a metaphor, like for an arranged marriage versus a non-arranged marriage, and how you get those reports about like, oh yeah, you know, people in arranged marriages actually end up happier in the long term. I don't know if that's true, but there's some studies that suggest that.
That might be a cultural thing.
Yeah, of course. It's absolutely. Yeah. Look at India, and Indians are always like.
I don't think that would work if we just applied that to another country.
Yeah, but what's interesting about Indians is that they engage in arranged marriages, but they're still like pretty Western. They're still pretty integrated into like Western culture and society. Like they still like shit from the West. Yeah,
their official language, as far as I understand, is English. I'm not sure if it's pan-India or just certain parts, but a friend of mine who's from somewhere near Mumbai, I'm not exactly sure how to say the actual town name, so I'm not going to try. His name is Raj. I'm confident saying that.
Yeah.
But he says that ever since he was in primary school growing up as a young child, everything he read and taught and learned was in English. There was no other language that he was even instructed or learned at home or in school.
Yeah. And also another culture that it's not really like arranged marriages, but you know, like how like Orthodox Jewish culture has the matchmaking system where you kind of like have the registry and then you kind of have
I've heard of that. Yeah, they
that's
they
convenient.
do have something like that, but it's more like they have like like there's an older woman in the town who just has everybody's phone number and knows everybody's mother, and they're like, oh, you know, these two people have similar interests. Maybe they should go out. It's not like an officialized aspect of the religion. It's just kind of something that the community does.
I'm not really attributing it to the culture. More like I'm looking at it as like really ancient Tinder. Sorry, it's like it's like old.
That actually is a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah,
and the fact that usually the woman in that position, generally it is a woman, will actually get to know the people she's going to be matching so that she tries to get a good match for people and stuff.
Yeah.
And she could probably even give them relationship advice afterwards if she's really doing her job, so to speak, as like one of the sages of the community.
And that's like interesting shit.
My family wasn't Orthodox. Well, my grandmother was originally Orthodox and they got kicked out of the community for some things. And I still do have a lot of Orthodox friends, and I've seen the way it's not as strict as you might think it is, that the way they operate.
No, I didn't think it would be.
They don't touch pork, though. That's definitely one of the rules.
Yeah, they got to keep kosher.
What do you think about Al Green yelling in the Trump thing?
It's a lot of halal food, though. It's something a lot of people don't expect to see Orthodox Jews sitting down at a Muslim restaurant. But since most of the rules line up, as long as they don't mix milk and meat, okay in God's eyes.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, halal and glot's fine.
Well, who's Alan Green again?
So I don't even really know because I thought Al Green was a musician, and I know he is. But there's this dude, Congressman Al Green. He's this weird-looking dick of a guy who just looks kind of like a dick.
He looks like a musician too, though. He looks like he probably sings some mad blues.
He looks like he does a lot of cocaine.
That's racist.
He does look like he loves cocaine. Like, doesn't he? He has that kind of like.
He is a little bit racist, but
I'm not saying he does. Yeah, exactly.
Like
I was about to say he looks like he likes little boys and cocaine. That's exactly right.
Shit.
Yeah.
Jesus
Brutal.
Christ, dude.
I didn't say he was actually.
I mean,
Greek.
that's what the singers were doing in the 40s. So.
Oh my God, I don't know. So this freaking guy, he disgusts me. Let's just listen to it really quickly. Actually, go ahead. Say what you should say.
I have no idea.
What are the chances that someone in our generation, when we become like boomer age, will become like congressmen and shit? That scares me. It's like, God. Dude. I hope you guys get your shit together before you.
It's going to be like just the heads in the jars from Futurama, and it's going to be all the same people that are alive today.
I've known quite a few congressmen actually randomly over the years, but like, so here's the
numbers. I have some bills we need to pass.
A lot of them. Yeah, we could talk.
And still I rise, Mr. Speaker. And I rise today, Mr. Speaker, with a to whom it may concern message. To whom it may concern. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not a joke, especially when it emanates from the President of the United States, the most powerful person in the world.
Okay, well, hey, let him cook. You know what?
When he has the ability to perfect what he says. Ethnic cleansing in Gaza is no joke, and the Prime Minister of Israel should be ashamed, knowing the history of his people, to stand there and allow such things to be said. Ethnic cleansing has been a crime against humanity. And I stand here today in the well to denounce what was said, to denounce what the president said, to denounce the complicity of the Prime Minister of Israel, and to remind people that Dr. King was right. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And injustice in Gaza is a threat to justice in the United States of America. I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done.
Yeah, like zero.
Put it on the fucking refrigerator.
Yeah,
I'm
be
surprised
honest.
to say
Wait 2 years.
that the impeachment movement is going to be a grass up movement, not a top down.
I can tell you like grass.
The people have got to move forward. The people have to demand it. And when the people demand it, it will be done. I did it before. I laid the foundation for impeachment, and it was done. Nobody knows more about it than I. And I know that it's time for us to lay the foundation again. On some issues, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. On this issue, I stand alone, but I stand for justice. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Members are reminded to
So, well, I mean, that's whatever, though, because, like, then he does because he wouldn't.
What are we reacting to here? Because there was a lot. There was the Israel-Palestine thing, the Trump thing.
Apparently, he refused to take his seat.
Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the sergeant-at-arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
This is WWF. This is KFAB.
This is kind of
They fucking wrote this shit beforehand. This is Stone Cold fighting The Rock.
I mean, so he's being removed.
This is fucking KFAB. This is literally
He's the heel.
Everybody's
He's the bad guy.
I mean, yeah, it seems like it's a vibe to it. He does look like a bad guy, yeah.
Literally KFAB. I bet you they were in the green room beforehand drinking fucking Trump. He had a glass of wine and Trump had Diet Coke in a wine glass. And they
Oh my God, I don't know. So that's basically what's going on today. That seems like the main.
KAYFABE, KFAB or KFAB, depending on what part of the country you're from. Look it up.
KFYAB.
These guys are
KAYFABE, KFAB or KFAB, depending on where you're from.
AB KFAB like that. KFAB like this. KFAB.
Yo, let's push Andreas to be a congressman. Congressman Andreas Xirtus, Representative Xirtus.
I would vote for him.
That'll be sick. We got to take us to the parties on your congressman jet.
I like the idea because don't you have like certain kinds of immunity? Like I could be like driving and then they can't like arrest you. Like there's all kinds of crazy things.
That's a little shit. That's a small shit though.
Absolutely, that's diplomats. No, congressional immunity applies only in the chamber of the actual Congress.
Also, Vince,
So
did you see this?
Beat the hell out of somebody in there, and they're not going to arrest you for it. You're going to get thrown out, and you're probably going to get removed from Congress for it, but you're not going to get charged with a crime if you're a congressman beating up another congressman or someone else who happens to be in the room.
Okay, so
once
first
you
we
leave
got
the building, that's gone.
Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intention to raise a question of privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. House Resolution number 189. Whereas on March 4th, 2025, during the joint session of Congress convened pursuant to House Concurrent Resolution 11, the President of the United States, speaking at the invitation of the House and Senate, had his remarks interrupted by the representative from Texas, Mr. Green. Whereas the conduct of the representative from Texas disrupted the proceedings of the joint address and was a breach of proper conduct. And whereas after numerous disruptions, the representative from Texas had to be removed.
Does this cost him anything, or is it just like an official reprimand that does nothing?
I mean, they're gonna. What do they say? They in a resolution to censure.
Censure. What does that mean? Does that mean you get fined?
Censure legally is expressed disapproval or formal.
Or finger wagging.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah,
This is Degeneration X going.
Right. Well, it's like it's free speech zones essentially. So some places are more free speech.
Concerted disruption of proper decorum.
Sorry. Yeah, I just was showing the thing. So they actually have them escorted out. So
I'm not saying kayfabe is a bad thing, honestly.
I've
It's
seen-
bringing people
I've
into
seen that.
civics and getting conversations started. It's good that they're doing that, but I don't think that any of this comes from a place of, oh yeah, I'm actually telling you to go fuck yourself. It's like, no, we planned to hate each other before we walked out.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like as much as people would call that a conspiracy theory, the obsession with
in the WWF. It's part of his fucking showbiz history. He knows how to get a crowd
it's not even
hooked up.
history.
That's what they're doing.
It's not even
Yeah,
history. It's like contemporary.
Civics by making it cooler than football, which
That
is
was
exactly
more.
what
It's
part
kind
of
of
before.
current.
before the WWF, like professional, quote unquote, professional wrestling was literally clowns and guys in farmer costumes at circuses and carnivals. It was called catch wrestling. And Vince McMahon took catch wrestling and comic book characters and put stuntmen as the stars, which was something nobody had ever done before, and made something way cooler than football. And that's exactly what Trump is doing with politics now.
Great. Well, he was part of the WWE. He fought in it.
Got Vince McMahon in the fold. He's got his wife working for the administration.
He's like, he served, not in the military, in the WWE.
And I'm not saying that
watch this, guys. Watch this.
I'm saying that they know each other's techniques and they learn from each other.
Did you see that right there? So Nancy Pelosi, dude, she grabs this piece of paper and she rips it right in front of everybody. She's so pissed.
Yeah, this is a show. This is a reality TV show.
Yeah. It's heels versus baby faces. That's what they call it in wrestling. So Trump literally played a heel in WWE, and so he really plays that role very, very well as a president, and he's turning America into the heel for the world. And the heel is the one that gets things done.
To WWF arc.
He lost a lot of weight too.
That's the idiocracy thing, right? With the Camacho.
Is it though?
Yeah. I mean, the wrestler like archetype as the president is integrated into idiocracy.
Yeah, so deeply that
a better world than ours. When they found the smartest guy in the world, they instantly had him working for the president. They don't. It's
the future. Future. Don't worry about it. We haven't gotten there. We're not smart enough.
Kamala Harris.
We should do that in our world, and we don't. Why?
Well, we try. Well, the thing is, we find people like Elon Musk, and we realize that smart people are neurotic messes that don't actually understand everything. And then we go, oh, fuck, maybe intelligent people isn't actually the answer, because that's just not true. That intelligent people can be psychopathic, can be narcissistic, can have a whole range of issues. And we don't account that when we just go smart is good automatically. But
yeah, just look at me. I'm an idiot. I'm a great guy.
I was thinking about this earlier. My audience is a... Go ahead, sorry.
We need an ecology of academics and of intelligent people.
I disagree. I would need the opposite. So this is what I'm saying. Like, I hate that my audience is so smart. I love you guys and all, but if I had thought about this years ago differently, I would have not left CNN, because these smart people that are critically looking into everything and sometimes are so smart that they're crazy and conspiracy theorists, right? I mean, that kind of audience is so much less trusting. And if we just had dumb people watching our show, then they'd be happy. We'd have a much more popular show if we just made shows for dumb people. And that's exactly what Hollywood did. And they were so much happier with their,
Look,
they made people happy.
More dumb people buy your shit when you're doing that. You know what I mean? Like McDonald's doesn't make the best.
There are a lot of dumb people.
The thing is, it's easier to influence dumb people. So if you market dumb people, then you can brainwash them easier. Basically, they don't take things seriously. They just consume like zombies. They consume semi-consciously. So you can make them watch what you want.
Invite your dumb friends, all my smart audience, please. Try to get your dumb friends.
That's how you got me. I'm a dumb guy.
The thing is, the people that come here know that they're not smart. And that makes them smarter than the average. So like he just said, Chris knows he knows not, because he's seen more than the idiot can even conceive of.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with being that wise. It could get you later. But I think it's important to remember that Trump did beat Kamala Harris and James Harris, Kamala the wrestler. It just feels like always been
Trump?
Not the same Kamala, but you know what I mean? Kamala James Harris.
I know Kamala Harris, the wrestler.
Yeah, so the fact that Trump beat Kamala Harris, the politician, is already on the sink of beating a wrestler or wrestling against a Kamala Harris. I think that's kind of the idea, is that we really have moved into the wrestling war politics.
The real question is, has Trump and Vince McMahon shared a hooker before? It's possible, because Trump, Vince McMahon, not Shane. Vince McMahon, he has all these allegations that he shat on this woman's head and stuff, and he was ragdolling around this girl that he hired. It's like a huge deal, and apparently they're really, really good friends. And I'm like, wow, who knows what kind of
they are kind of like this. They're like the same spiritual phenotype, I guess. Like, look at them.
Yeah.
They both look like
they're not. Absolutely the fuck not. Trump has never done DRT, and it's obvious.
no, but he's probably done adrenochrome.
Image. I'm sorry, but I look at them as like two of like the most opposite type of billionaire.
Oh, because you actually like Vince McMahon, right?
Vince McMahon is obviously the libertine, do steroids, fuck bitches, take drinks, probably had a lot of sex outside of marriage. Trump seems to be more of a one-woman man type of guy.
Well, he fucked that porn star, so like he did fuck that porn star.
It's just
did he really though? I was never convinced that he actually did have sex with Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels?
I never was convinced.
Look, I'm not saying Trump does fuck hookers
on my
anything.
table. Yeah, no, I mean,
he might. It's just like he was a hotshot multimillionaire in the '80s at the peak of cocaine culture. I don't know. Like I don't know.
It's possible.
He probably has a past. Like
wait, memory man. No, Andreas. What? Can you explain what you mean? I'm just curious which thing I said that you disagree with. But I did want to say that with Trump, I think the idea that he had sex with prostitutes is completely believable. It's just that the more you look at, Vince McMahon. Yeah. We're talking about Vince McMahon maybe being a wrestler. Could see Ann. The idea that Trump might be obsessed with being the hero archetype because he loves the idea. Maybe that's what makes him feel masculine is that he's rescuing these damsels in distress. And that's how he ends up with this model from a human trafficking hub in Slovenia who's in New York and like what they do to models there. And the thing that makes him feel great isn't, scat porn. It's maybe like he's rescuing a model from this horrible abuse. That might be his kink. I don't know I think that's just as plausible that his kink is to rescue damsels in distress as it is that he likes to have sex with prostitutes. And in fact, to me, it's more likely from what I've seen that he's into his damsel in distress kink. But I don't know. Like it could be the Stormy Daniels thing. I never saw any evidence that the Stormy Daniels thing was real. And I know that she lost the court case. But I could be. Someone tell me though, like if there's better evidence.
The thing is, I have no doubt that like people approached Trump. Like people probably did want to. Stormy Daniels might have approached him. He might have said no. Like who knows? It's hard. I wasn't in the room. That's for sure. So I think everything.
The horn dog archetype comes from a position of thirst, and once you've got the desire of a lot of women, you realize that having tons of meaningless sex is not only not fulfilling, but it actually makes you feel worse, not better.
Yeah.
Sure, but
maybe there was a time really early on, right when he first got his success, where he ran around being like that. But not for nothing, like it gets old really fucking fast. And if you don't believe me, hit the gym. I promise you, you'll see exactly the same thing I did.
Well, I'm a
believe
virgin,
me.
so I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a born again virgin, and I lost it 3 times. But no, I totally get it. I totally get it.
General level of sex drive. The thing is that women assume more risk in such a scenario, so that they're going to be more careful about it. But once it's just as available to both sides, then you'll realize that unless there's a real connection there, you won't even want to do it.
The thing is,
but until you get rid of the thirst, you won't be able to see that. So you need to be able to get rid of the thirst first.
Right. But at the same time, there's people like P. Diddy who do it for decades and decades and decades, and it's like one of those things that it's either you overcome it, or it gets worse and worse, and your fetishes get worse and worse.
If P. Diddy worked at Burger King, would he ever get any attention? Let me ask you that question, right? Because I once had a girl fly me to Los Angeles and put me in a penthouse to hang out with her, and I was fucking unemployed at the time. So, like, let me ask you that. Like, was that because he had money, or was that because he was actually a cool guy who had a connection with these people?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, he has the charisma and he has that energy. Obviously, there's a power. Yeah, but like he was always good at drawing in people and doing all these things, and he was well connected, and that comes with
I feel like having money also means you're afraid that women are going to want you only for your money, and that might change everything about Trump's dynamic as well. Like he wants people to want him for something other than his money. And so for him, it's like, I want to be a good guy who rescues people. That makes me feel
it could be it could be that President Trump is viewing himself as a hero for the people. I wonder if he ever watched or read Watchmen, if he's ever like been exposed to that sort of concept and like the idea of like what.
I wonder if he's in the comic books.
It's a comic book, so it's
The Watchmen by Alan Moore.
Yeah, Alan Moore. So like how you have. You have the main villain. You know, he's the one who wants to rescue humanity from endless war with one another, and so he creates a scenario where they have to unite and stop fighting under risk that they will be swept away by either aliens or Dr. Manhattan, depending on the story. So it's like,
you know, I heard a story about this guy. He went into the woods with some guys and burnt $1 million. KLF.
Alan Moore?
Huh?
Alan Moore?
Alan Moore. He's the guy who filmed it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Alan Moore is he's a wizard. He's a self-proclaimed.
Yeah, it was magic.
So pure magic.
Alan Moore is an absolute. But yeah, so you said they had to.
Well, it's like you know, like Donald Trump. Donald Trump probably has a nuanced understanding of what it takes to make. Nuanced enough, not necessarily the most nuanced, but nuanced enough to understand that it's not all. You can't sugarcoat everything. You can't go through everything with good intentions and like try to make everyone feel good all the time. Sometimes you have to do the thing that will make you look like the bad guy. You have to play the heel sometimes. It's Machiavellian.
Always be polite.
It's the reality of the world that like sometimes you do have to pick up a sword. You know, you can't always wave the flag of peace. It's just not how the reality.
It's possible that everyone involved understands that this is the reality of the situation and this is what needs to be done, and that Trump is the only one who's willing to take on the responsibility, like, and say, yeah, I'm the guy who did these things. I'm the guy who accepted all this controversy, because no other politician will touch those issues.
Yep.
So they all let him say, all right, you're the guy who's going to do it. We're going to cause a lot of fucking problems about that because we don't want to be seen as agreeing with you. Even though we know that needs to be done.
Right. He's a catalyst. He's a catalyzer. He's able to make things change, basically.
Yeah.
He's fire under the ass of the world.
Okay, so
I was gonna say really quickly, you heard that John McAfee was into scat, right? That was like a big thing that happened a while ago. There was
I don't understand how that literally could be attractive to anyone at all. One time I stepped in shit and I looked at the bottom of my shoe and threw up. Like that's like so.
So I get McMahon. I get McMahon. Yeah, I get McMahon though, because McMahon, maybe he's like into wrestling and he's into this idea of like getting something over someone else.
I don't even see as a human being. He looks like a fucking movie character to me. So it's less disgusting when I hear about that. But when you say John McAfee, like that's a human being.
But here's what's different is that McMahon likes to exploit other people. He wants to poop in them in their mouths or something, which is like, whoa.
Yeah, dominator thing, right?
Dominator.
That's big in Dubai.
It's big in Dubai. He's like a doobie in Dubai.
Oh yeah. It's all about domination. It's all about how low below the other person is compared to you.
McAfee was different though. McAfee liked to get Latin American girls to sit in hammocks and cut holes in the hammocks, apparently, and sit underneath the hammocks and have them dookie on his head.
It's pretty industrious, very efficient.
That just seems to me like, whoa, what the heck?
It could be an early on thing that happens, you know, like when you're young, you're not fully developed.
Sean's going to go vomit right now.
This guy was always fucking crazy though. Like apparently, like he would do this thing where he would get a real revolver, put one round in the chamber, spin the thing, and then he would play Russian roulette. And then right before it gets to the loaded chamber, he would just point it away and shoot it. And it's like, damn, if I could do that, I would do that all the time.
Is that he did that for because he believed in quantum immortality.
Yeah.
And every single time he would be put into a universe that was less and less likely to eventually reach like a Rick and Morty like scenario where he literally has a fucking portal gun. But no, it just kills you.
It's
fucking retarded.
Yeah. Well, it's like the messed up idea of synchromysticism. Like if you smoke a lot of meth, like I'm a synchromystic, and then you're like I can't die. It's like
I'm a mentalist. I believe in that the physical reality is actually an emanation of the mental reality, not vice versa. And what you think of mental is not actually inside your head. Absent anything else in the universe, the first principle is mental. That's what you start on. And the fact that your head exists is within the mentalist.
Well, you're in good
quantum physics doesn't fucking work like that. Don't believe John McAfee.
Wow.
Well, all right. I won't.
Thank you. I appreciate the warning. Before now, I was like,
I needed to preface that with where I come from, because even though, like, yes, there were some things that he was correct about, it does not lead you to the point where pointing a revolver at your head and pulling the trigger will somehow make you stay alive.
I think he just did it to impress people.
these are all the girls that, not all of them, but these are some of the girls in the Gringo, The Dangerous Life of John McAfee documentary, and they talk about, they're like, yeah, he used to do this to or make us do this to him. I guess. I mean, just look. I mean, they're all like, whoa. I don't know what. To me, that's just crazy. I don't know. Like, I wonder so much about John McAfee. Like, what is
literally antithetical to?
How does that happen?
The thing is that there's the dominator aspect, and then there's the inversion of the dominator, which is like usually when you have like a businessman who likes dominatrix, for example, like he wants to be dominated because he's so used to being over everyone. But deep down, he knows shit. Even
inside your stomach, it rots. That's how it turns from food into shit. When food goes through your stomach and digests, it turns into something called chyme, which is what your body is able to absorb through your intestinal wall. But that chyme rots and turns into shit, and that's literally a mass of living bacteria.
Well, maybe it's a fecal.
Literally a million fucking years trying to figure out how to manage that, and wound up on the toilet and toilet paper system that works really fucking well. Stop playing with that stuff.
But fecal transplants are saving lives, so I don't know, bro.
That's
I mean,
different.
Fecal transplants.
That's different. That's different. But that does make me think, though. Maybe there's a parasitic aspect to this. That like this guy has like a brain parasite or something, and then it keeps like you gotta get shit on you, and then that makes more parasites come, and then he ends off like in sort of like this.
Well, shit is also really valuable, right? It's valuable as
parasites.
I was just thinking about Aleister Crowley and Satanism is my first thought, and Not Joe King literally thought the same thing. I was like, if you're obsessed with these things, doesn't that seem kind of demonic to an extent? You're fostering bacteria which have consciousness, and maybe that's a way of spreading demons because demons are
maybe the old dragon is a worm.
You're supposed to have E. coli in your lower intestine. If it gets anywhere above that, you could die. Like, people have gone blind and lost limbs over this shit. It's not called food poisoning because of a fucking, like, little illness that you get for a couple of days. It can be very fucking serious.
Yeah, watch Osmosis Jones. I know it's serious.
Yeah. I love that movie. I was just going to watch it again the other day.
Is mushrooms actually poisoning? Like, I don't know if I buy that.
No, some of them are, though. Some mushrooms do have poison.
But I'm talking about psychedelic mushrooms. They say that...
I'm an mescaric...
And you don't overdose, then it's not a poisoning. It's a drugging.
I guess
there's a therapeutic dose, and then there's a toxic dose. And how close these things align is like whether it's a drug or a toxin comes into play.
But I just want to say also, thanks for Not joking.
I don't recommend, but it's called DNP. And it's like if you take it, you can't have enough of it in your body to have an effective dose without coming about that close to poisoning yourself. So don't take it. But yeah, like what you call a drug or a poison is kind of subjective.
Sure. So it's all about dosage, but that's true for life, right?
It's
all about
intention.
A surprising amount of life, and it's about taking the right thing at the right time and the right dose.
No, if someone was unintentionally drugged with mushrooms, like in their food, that would be poisoning them, whether or not they were sickened by it, or if they just tripped, or if it was a microdose because they didn't intend to take it. That's poisoning.
Okay, but no, but that's drugging them. I mean, that's
poisoning someone.
Sure.
If they didn't intend to take it, that's poisoning. Period.
I guess
that's it. And like the judge will agree with me if it ever comes to pass.
I remember hearing about this woman who overdosed on chocolate. She was an elderly woman who during Easter she ate too much chocolate and she literally had a toxic effect from it. So she had a full-on overdose of chocolate and she had to go to the ER and I think she died.
Some sort of bromine, theobromine, right? It doesn't actually have bromine in the molecule. Yeah, I've heard of that. It's
chocolate is a drug. Chocolate is the biggest drug in the world.
No, the most valuable drug on earth is coffee.
Oh no, well I didn't say valuable, but I mean coffee and chocolate together. Like you find them at every corner store. You can get them anywhere. They're
ran the triangle trade: coffee, chocolate, rum.
I want to say thanks to Not Joe King for watching the show because I know you're a decent human being and some of these subjects got a little wild, but I mean it's the world we live in, so it's kind of
we're decently wild people, okay?
I'm a little too curious for my own good. I feel like a decent human being would just be like, okay, I'm never gonna want to ever learn about John McAfee ever again, but instead I'm just like,
thank God you're not a cat.
My eyebrows get raised. I don't know. The other one was the gay porn, cinematic gay porn. Did you see he did Luigi Mangione sex tapes?
Porn. I didn't hear it was gay porn. What?
Oh, maybe it wasn't. Sorry, my mind went there. I don't know. It's cinema style porn.
Been watching a lot of that, huh?
I just assumed because it's Luigi. You know, he just looks like he does gay porn. I could be wrong. Am I wrong? Like
I don't know.
Because he's Italian.
Is my gaydar a little too? Is it crossing something?
I don't know. You probably have the strongest gaydar out of all of us because you're from California.
Thank you.
I thought it was called the homometer.
Only in French Canada.
No, but I don't think that I don't think your gaydar would be that good because you're immersed in it. You know, you can't see the forest from the
Canada,
trees.
they just call it shaking hands.
Anybody could be gaydaring. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but the idea of the cinema style porn too, like why he made cinema style porn. To me, it's not so much about the gay. It's about
what does cinema style mean? Was there
maybe it's not amateur looking, like nice. Yeah.
You got some. Well, maybe, but more probably like tasteful shots or whatever. They're trying to make it artistic or something. That's usually how it ends off. There's some people who want to fix porn. They think that porn is something that can be, I guess, redeemed through artistic value and through the combination of art, as opposed to, like continuing into the spiraling of.
God, I really hope so. To be honest, I actually think I hope so. I agree with Chris a lot on porn. I think porn is
awful.
The word. I think porn's like one of the most horrible drugs and mind control things that exist, and it's incredible to see how things destroy people's lives. Porn has destroyed so many lives. It's just literally destroying the potential for new lives to be created, and just wasting people's lives and destroying the potential for people to love each other. But I mean, I'm just saying, I love the idea of, like, I have a picture of Sisyphus on my wall pushing a rock up a hill and he's naked. Is that gay porn? Like, I have Catholic art where there's like a breast with lactation. Like the Catholic art has like the Holy Mother and you can see boobs. Like, is that porn? I mean, it's hard for me to think that everything is the same. I
just want to say,
there's a difference between sex.
Yeah, but you'll notice I never say like, we should stop porn from ever being made again. It's like you can't.
True.
Porn is, it's anything could be porn. If a person's like expelling and growing like the psychic attachment to something and attaching their sexual like release with it, yeah, for all intents and purposes, that's probably porn. So functionally, at least. So yeah, I'm not saying like we should force porn from like ever being made or ever existing. No, you can't. So you should just like, as a dude, just try to like not get addicted to that shit for sure.
The thing is, if we got rid of porn, people would jerk off to just regular
magazines
TV.
again.
They would jerk off to regular people. They would spy on people. They do it now, even with porn. So it's like these things.
I don't think regular people would do that. I'm sorry. I think if somebody's going to be doing that, they're going to be doing that with or without porn.
I mean, really,
but that's like getting off on like looking at somebody from.
But the thing is, people like, especially younger people, they're gonna watch anime or whatever. They're gonna watch like a hot girl they find Buffy the Vampire Slayer cute or whatever, and they're gonna jerk off to her. Like that's
porn
replaces that.
Like Sears catalog in the mail.
People try to find
porn. Sorry.
People try to find porn stars that look like the celebrities they're attracted to because they would jerk off to the celebrities if they didn't have the porn.
All right, I'm just saying no matter what, like it's still a commodity. So it's really like a supply and demand kind of thing, but it's only weird because you could scale out the demand infinitely. All you have to do is just inject certain imagery and like mainstream media, like have certain like explicit content, subject matter, like injected into your music and just like pump that to the masses, and eventually it's just going to sell itself. That's really how you increase the demand.
You don't have to listen to garbage music though. Like you can listen to like music that is like life affirming and
I agree.
Sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
You can also look at it.
True. That's anti-life, like it's
but then there's that movie. Did you see Bucky Larson? Bucky Larson boarded his car.
I tried to block it from my memory.
Oh Christ, Dick Swardson, fuck.
I like Dick Swardson.
That's where his talent is at. Great on stage with a mic, and that's it.
Oh yeah,
you put him on the fucking camera. It's a train wreck every time.
I like it. I disagree like 100%. I actually really like Grandma's Boy. Grandma's Boy is one of my favorite.
That was him.
movies.
No, he was in that. It wasn't his movie.
He wrote that. He wrote it.
Really?
Yeah, he's a brilliant.
He's a very funny person, but Bucky Larson is too gross To me,
I
it's just-
disagree. I thought Bucky
No,
Larson.
he's
I'm
the
from
star.
California, okay? So I'm
Yeah.
from way grosser things than Bucky Larson. And
No,
so
no,
for
it's
me to
not
say
fair.
Bucky Larson is my argument against banning pornography
Is
because in the
Bucky
movie,
Larson like edgy Napoleon Dynamite?
yes, sort of.
Okay.
Okay, here's the deal. He's a guy from Wisconsin, and he finds out that his parents used to make porno movies back in the 70s together. It's not like today where, you know, everyone's abused
Yeah.
and they're like, it's not vomit porn. It's his mom and his dad when they were young. They were in love. They still are in love. They're married still. And they used to make movies when they were still handsome and pretty and young together. And
So he wants
he
to see it.
he sees it and he's all excited. He's like, wow, cool. My mom and dad are movie stars. I want to make a movie. You know, I'm going to end up finding my girlfriend and then we're going to have a great time and we'll record that for other people. And I think he's trying to show like there literally could be a different thing that exists than what we're used to, which is this kind of exploitation designed to latch on to your sexual energy and your fetishization of what's wrong, what's socially unacceptable. And that thing is an added, and they're making weirder and
Right.
weirder fetishes where you're like,
Actually, a
you know what you want is you want to pop
Yeah.
balloons.
Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of a spiritual larva?
A spiritual larva. No. let me look
It's
it up.
literally a spirit of hand and eye and mouth. There's no brain. There's no thought. It's a total automaton spiritual concept. And what it does is it latches itself onto your neck and furthers itself based on your energy. No,
Yes,
not the
that's
meaning
exactly-
of fly larva in spirituality. That's meat turning alive again. I'm talking about literally a spiritual larva. It can grow into a conscious entity, but at the moment, it's literally just a want. Like,
Yeah, I
like
think that
the
that's
body.
kind of what's. I think that they know that sex isn't wrong because sex could be part of love, right? And then they're taking the love out of it and they're making pornography
Well-
about other things because you have to replace it with something. Whereas I don't think there's anything wrong with people that are in love. And
Right.
I wonder more and more about like if you're making
way
art,
the way-
like beautiful nude paintings,
Yeah.
right? Different
Thing
than
is-
like life drawing. It's not the
thing
same
is-
as pornography.
The way I interpret it is that like you've got this finite amount of energy with which to exact your spiritual will upon the physical world, right? Whatever that may be, it doesn't matter. But if there's anything that's coming into your life and sapping that energy for its own furtherance rather than your own true will, then that is a larva that's attaching itself to your neck like a leech and taking
Right.
your energy and using it for its own
Okay.
ends. Those ends are not conscious nor planned. It's like a piece of mildew or a plant, but
Okay,
it still can steal energy from its environment and further itself and then reproduce.
Right,
which
right.
makes
So
it dangerous.
I understand what you mean by spiritual larva a little more. It's like a psychic parasite or an energetic parasite that feeds off
it's
of.
like
it.
imagine like a
this is
little
why-
crustacean with
this is
two
why a lot of
giant
times-
hands, two giant
Okay.
eyes, and a giant mouth, but it's
Right.
thin and it's wispy with visible ribs.
Chris, go ahead. Wait, what was
I-
Chris trying to say? Hold on.
I was gonna say this is why AA was like one of the only things out there that could like figure out like alcohol addiction, severe alcohol addiction, because they, unlike I don't know, fucking psychologists and scientists, weren't able to figure out that the third component outside of like a mental addiction, a physical addiction, was also your spiritual malady, right? And you know, you can't have doctors
About
talking about that
willpower.
shit. You can't have like scientists talking about that shit. It was only like an organization like AA.
Health, the word health literally is a measure of your ability to exact your will upon the world around you, your environment. So I'm really arguing with you on that, because if we have
Well-
a health industry, that means we ostensibly have an industry that's
No.
literally dedicated to that spiritual endeavor.
Should.
Is
That's
that
a
true?
should.
I wish
should.
that were true. I think it's
No,
not.
it is. Ask any
I think-
doctor.
I think you've got two. Well, that's what I was gonna say because my mom was a doctor. I think that you have you have a more beautiful idea of health. You have this idea of
But it
self-realization.
should be.
Yeah, and I think even looking at the World Health Organization, it doesn't say like your ability to self-realize. It says your comfort ability with working. Essentially, you have to have a social labor. Like if you're able to work in
How
in
did you do
society.
that without working?
You know,
It's
look,
literally called the great work for a reason.
Yeah, but working for a job is different than self-realization. I think a lot of time
No,
health
it's
is defined
not.
by health is
is.
defined by absence. Health is defined by absence of disease, and
Look,
that's
Right,
crazy
because the
because then you're
disease-
defining.
Lessons
No,
like,
then
if
your
you have
then your
something
idea
wrong
of
with your
health
leg,
is
you can't get up and wash your face in the morning because it's hard to walk to the bathroom. That's
but then
compromising
you're
your
just saying.
willpower.
Then you're just talking about disease. Then you're just saying it's not disease. You know, semantics. That's semantics, and then there's no. If we focused on self-realization instead of on disease, health would be a completely different field. That's my opinion.
Yeah. What is mental health about?
Again, making people
being
work.
an efficient worker.
Yeah.
That's basically.
Do you not pick your work?
No, you get what you can.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are slaves, and they don't have the capacity to self-realize.
Is acquiring money the only job, the only work that you see in your life, or do you work towards other things like self-improvement, like cleaning your house, like working toward having good relationships with your family and friends?
That's not your job anymore. Then, so it's a meaning crisis. It's a meaning crisis.
That's work. That's
Let me.
Work.
What we meant by work is job.
Yeah, I meant.
We meant like job. We meant job.
I meant a job. Bring on our expert on the difference between labor, work, and jobs, Andrew Vega.
No. I would love to know why the word work.
hold on. How you doing? By the way, I never seen you
to work
on our show with like all your tats like this, and I just want to give you a shout out. Like you have a nice.
Everyone, take off your shirts.
I'm doing it right now. You can see my nipples, but only the people in the inner chat. Okay.
Everyone show off their tattoos. Let's go.
I'll show off my pecs in April. Right now, I'm still getting my cut going.
But wait, hold on. Andrew just joined us. I wanted to hear him talk about labor.
Kurt's much more articulate.
Wait 1 second. Before we go back, I just want to circle back to porn.
He's working.
I just want to circle back to porn because I think that people need role models, right? We need role models for certain behaviors, for certain things, including relationships, including sexuality. And the problem with porn is that it's saturated with trash. While there could be a form of educational pornography that helps contextualize relationship, consent, and place it for children in a way, or for teenagers rather, so that they will be able to understand, because they're going to consume this trash anyways. And currently they're unguided. They have zero parental anything. No one is governing any of this. Is just, hey, you want to go look at whatever you want to go look at. Watch it get worse and worse every single year, as you just have no way of knowing if this is good or bad. And so
you can't learn anything from porn. You can only learn about that by exploring your own self.
Once what I'm talking about happens, it won't be called pornography anymore. It will have to be something else, because it's not the same thing. And pornography is devoid of value outside of the sexuality.
So, what I'm saying is those things can't be taught. That's like, this is higher magic here. You need to learn this for yourself.
I disagree.
You need to do it with a trusting partner.
This is an archetypal thing.
Yourself and the person you love.
So you don't think that the Kama Sutra is a valuable book for people?
But there is education to be done about this, and there is archetypal resonance that you can have. Like, people identify as doms and subs, and they have to learn about this to understand it. And these are all different archetypes that they have to access.
I think it's interesting that more
absence of a partner who was willing to participate and trust you, and you trust them.
The thing is, porn is theory, and anyone who porn is just theory. Like, you watch it and you're, I think I understand sex, but until you actually have it, until you actually have that real connection, it's just theory. Like, you can't actually.
More people are comfortable with Pornhub than they are with the Kama Sutra, and I think that's really interesting, because the Kama Sutra is not as bad. It's actually like about relationships and how.
What if you made the Kama Sutra a visual thing?
It exists.
That's the thing.
I saw that movie when I was like 10. I shouldn't have, but I was on TV, or something.
And if we want to break it down etymologically, pornography literally means like to record hookers, streetwalkers, harlots.
Yeah.
So there is a difference. It wouldn't be pornography if
it's couples, if a married couple or a couple.
I want to propose something.
Porn is the desecration of sex.
Maybe the greatest evils that could be like projected onto our species are the ones that could hide with the most natural things, like sex. Very natural, perfectly natural for humans to engage in, and yet we have porn, which turns out to be very destructive. Or even food, like the act of eating. Eating's supposed to be like whatever, but then we could somehow like fetishize eating and just destroy our bodies and our lives.
Right. Unhealthy foods, exactly.
Well, this all seems to go around the vampire, like the sex and the feeding off of, like, it's all very vampiric. Like,
if something is purely negative, then we'll just try to kill it. If something tries to play on our senses and sensibilities. It's like a larva. We're going to try and preserve it, even to our own negative effect.
Let me just also reiterate, because health, again, we said that health was not the ability of self-realization, but it was working, capacity to work and be happy with working. Health is a state of, according to the World Health Organization, which, you know, what do they know? But health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So well-being, I think, is a big one here, but also the idea of social well-being. So like, it's how you're able to relate with others. And I think that's a big part of sex, but also relationships generally, whether, you know, whatever you're doing in terms of love or hate or communication and everything. But it is different. It is completely different whether you focus on work and on what you want to do. Those are completely different things. Like if you're focusing on what you want to make real, and so many people are controlled by what they're taught that they want. They have no idea what they want. They have no idea what they need. And they end up thinking that they want something that they saw in a movie. And that in the pornography, man, like you have fetishization where they want to choke people. They want to like literally punch each other because they see it in pornography, like crazy stuff, you know?
Yeah. So that was learned though, you know, like they learned those things, and you can't learn the proper way, but you can.
Andrew's smirking because he's like, I like to be choked. I get it. I know it's all right. No, okay.
No, but you know, like you can learn the improper way, and you can learn. Like that's the improper way is obvious. It's self-evident once you encounter it or once you see it. Oh, this person's shitting on this person. You sort of know that this was a bad thing that they probably learned somewhere. And so
that's my first thought with it to McAfee. Yeah, like, what happened?
The only time I've ever seen something like that was when somebody sent me a link is like a joke. Those
2 girls, 1 cup.
Yeah, that type of shit. But like, not even that, because that starts way too slow. Like, you can click off of that before it gets bad.
Well, I remember that is an active psychic assault on you. They were trying to damage your psychic body.
Yeah, but that was just stupid teenagers doing it in 2003.
That's how they get you, though. Stupid teenagers are the MK Ultra targets.
Yo, not for nothing though. Like, we were so much more brutal than anybody could ever have planned to have been, just by accident.
Hey, let's bring that up. Actually,
I think they knew.
Let's bring that. Should be the next subject. So, like,
they think about us when we were like, sorry, I think they look at us when we were like 14, and they were like, "Fuck, we gotta learn from this shit."
That's what I'm thinking. Is that I wanted to bring that up actually. So the idea that humanity hit a point which where it peaked and is coming down in terms of intensity of what we saw as kids. So our generation saw kids in the sandbox, 2 girls, 1 cup, all this crazy stuff, rotten.com. We saw so much horrible stuff that wasn't available historically. Even if you grew up in the plague or you were in like human trafficking, imperial times, or, you know, all the horrible things you might have endured, you didn't see it like all the time. We saw everything, and collectively, like insects shared in the memories. It'd be like a rotten.com. You'd have a guy who worked as an EMT find a dead body that's been sitting in an apartment for like 6 weeks, and then they take photos of it. We all saw, like, kids at church. I remember like my youth group minister introduced us to rotten.com. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. He was trying to tell us it was wrong, but like we hadn't heard of it yet, and now we know what it is because he's telling us.
This is the power of memes at play, right? This is how memes spread and how they can do tests to see how to spread memes, how to influence minds, and they can test virality like that. They can see, okay, well, this many kids access rotten.com, this many people watch this video, and then they can see the resulting impact, and they can even create markets around it. They go, oh, you like this shocking shit? Well, here's Jackass. Here's like hardcore punk.
Worth noting that it was also in like 480p. So... You know,
some of the pictures were definitely not 480p. Some of the pictures
I like the triangle pixelated titties, man.
But like the beheading
website though, it was like on Napster or whatever the equivalent was later on LimeWire.
Now you got poopy porn on 4K.
Our brains could decipher 480 back in the day better though. Like
Andrew,
graphics look better.
What was your point, Andrew, though? What was Andrew's point about it being lower resolution? Why did that matter?
I mean, it was the actual, like, conceptually it was worse than like the actual data than we were receiving. It was like we knew what was happening, and just the thought of it as opposed
is even more intense.
Yeah, that might be part of the digestibility of it. Like they introduce it through that pixelated version first, and then over decades and decades, it gets more and more clear and then they can, I guess, they can hyper normalize shock through
but
that.
is it worse
They
than it
don't
was?
want to,
Because
though.
I don't think it is. I think our generation is still watching worse.
The thing
Our
is, it's not
generation still watch
the
worse.
the goal is to refine it until they can get cause and effect down pat, and they can go, this sort of trauma will result in this sort of outcome, and they can try to really hone in on that. And so they don't want every
Facebook, Instagram,
because they want specific traumas on those things, and they get to put those specific traumas in there and omit other traumas that are devoted to other places that might not even be available for the majority of the masses anymore.
That because
Go
when it
for
was
it.
just us and our dumb 15-year-old friends when we were 15 sharing videos on the internet, that's what the internet was. It was us grassroots doing fucked up shit online. And now that the money came online and runs all the big networks, all that shit's gone.
Sure,
So,
but it was
like,
all part of the
that
MK
line-
Ultra. I mean, look, just because there weren't markets set up yet, there were markets forming. It was beginning. Newgrounds.com, the guy's a multi-millionaire. You know,
Newgrounds
like,
wasn't a gore site. Newgrounds banned gore in
Newgrounds-
2001.
No. Sorry to tell you, but at the time that was
I
shocking.
was on
But as part
Newgrounds
of
before 9/11.
dude, they had school shooting mini games that 11-year-olds were
It was
playing.
cartoons. It was not fucking.
No. You can't tell me that it's cartoons, therefore it's not violent.
Pico's school
Sorry.
shooting, he was fighting the school shooters. I played that game.
Doesn't
that was
matter.
before Flash
Doesn't
had
matter.
variables.
They
It
had
was like one of the first
look,
Flash games.
none of this is like, I'm not saying that it was the most shocking thing compared to Rotten.com, but on the scale as a 10-year-old kid seeing this sort of content while there's school shootings happening and starting and rising, this is all part of this sort of trauma sphere where they were covering it with the news. Had like, we had Bowling for Columbine, we had movies that they were talking about it, we had it everywhere.
So you
And
think that
combine that with emo music, for example. Emo music was all about reaction to trauma. It was all about, oh, look, we're all post 9/11 and we're all emotionally distraught and broken. And here, look, cut yourselves. Your identity is fucked up. You should dress this way. You should identify this way. You should,
all right.
Yeah. You
know, come on.
Shout out to Avenged Sevenfold.
I like,
but you know,
My Chemical Romance.
And you know, like the thing is that you can see that there's a cause and effect happening with emo music, right? Like, just as like a social experiment, let's say that, like, how many kids can we get to kill themselves?
I
Like,
think
how
you're looking
many?
at it backwards. I think that the art and expression that was coming out was a reaction to the stuff that was happening, not vice versa.
The thing is that they capitalized on the reaction, and that's
the band. That's the real
aspect.
post. That's the quintessential post 9/11 band.
Let's say
and this video was brilliant too, because it felt like a Donnie Darko American Pie movie. Like, the music video was genius.
Let's say you have a wartime tragedy happen, okay? Like a false flag attack, for example. You can gauge, and the goal of a false flag attack is to get a reaction. It's to get the reaction, the psychic reaction you want from the audience, from the country you're doing it to. And so if you can completely start controlling culture from this sort of top point of the tragedy, then you can see what happens. And then you can bring in another tragedy later and see how that affects that generation.
No, I
And
definitely
you can do it across multiple generations.
My Chemical Romance exists because of 9/11.
Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, so true.
It's true. Yeah,
it's all connected.
Like, yeah, that's a fact.
But also, our generation is so isolated because I don't think that's the same interest with these kids born after 2010 or 5 or whatever. Like, there's kids.
There's some like 12-year-old edgelord who's like found the dark web and is looking at Pac-Man.
But then they're super isolated from the rest of their cast, their kids, their clan. We are all. If you didn't do that, you were isolated. If you weren't part of that, you were isolated.
Well, you were part of another tribe, right? There was tribes set up.
Normal people gravitate toward that fucked up shit, and that, like, the powers that be are literally running eugenics campaigns to try and get that out of the population. And I think you guys are all looking at the binoculars backwards.
I mean, being distracted.
I'm factoring in eugenics and eumemics. So, like, memes and genes.
The military-industrial complex exists to sort of like funnel psychopaths into that, and then the reason that they don't take care of the veterans when they get home, is so they off themselves and they don't have to take care of them. So
you think this was for war? Maybe, like, they were preparing this generation.
It is. Sure. I mean, there's a reason why tons of money gets poured into sports versus the arts or whatever, even though a lot of the people who
maybe
like,
but when sports people retire, they get told to go screw off too.
Okay.
Like
no, because it's like, how many people, let's take football, for example. How many high school football players actually make it? Very few. But they're taught to bulk up and take directions. So their options are pretty limited. Go get a Dodge Charger and sign up for, whatever branch of the military. Yeah, and that also feeds the pornography machine as well on the side, because their girlfriends inevitably.
No, a Charger is a good car because, like, if you break down, there's going to be parts at your local shop, no matter how far out in the middle of nowhere you are. Good luck if you're in a Beamer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that.
Now we're talking about cars here.
How's that Mustang, Chris?
Pretty fucking sweet.
Pixel repaired daily.
Yeah, did you pick up any chicks and then kick them out of your car immediately yet?
No, I've just been driving really fast, trying to learn how to master the heel toe shift. I think I got it. It's just I really only need it for like turning when I'm banking a turn at like third gear, and then I slow down, and instead of like granny shifting, I just do the actual proper technique, and it's better for my car. So it's fun. I like learning these like little things with driving a standard.
I mean, all this it's all designed to feed the money machine, and it's a tale as old as time. If you look at any of Ozzy Osbourne's lyrics, he's always talking about this. If you look at the lyrics to Crazy Train, it talks about how the media will find a way to capitalize on a subculture, to sell it back to you and create an identity around an image. Even when at first that image was a reaction, it was counterculture, and then it becomes a commercial entity. For emo, for example, that started off as like an underground subgenre, and then the big music companies found a way to put these bands together so that way they could sell the image. The media sells it, and you live the role.
Yeah, well, it's they create gateways into these different sub communities, right? So you have like a band like Green Day who will come out and like they'll come out at the same time, and they'll be slightly more emo in their vibe, and then it'll be an introduction, a foot in the door for other bands, and then they can spread the meme of. But like I said, like
they didn't design the bands specifically to be that. They just picked the ones that fit the narrative.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, as long as the meme spreads, like that's what matters. So
some of them were put together consciously. I mean, Limp Bizkit, for example, all those guys.
Yeah. But that's new metal. That's another experiment.
But new metal was made because Rage Against the Machine wouldn't sell out, but that sound was so sellable. Look at how there's all these right-wing groups have co-opted
Rage Against the Machine
music.
Yeah, I would argue that Rage Against the Machine is the most sold out possible thing. They were like, hey, if you want to go to our concerts, you have to get vaccinated.
The thing is, they started on this.
I'm talking about 90s.
I felt more punk at Britney Spears concerts. I'm sorry.
But look at Slipknot. Look at Slipknot. Slipknot is a corporate band that was made
as a juggalo. I will never be able to support Rage Against the Machine as being unsold out.
Rage is just communist audio slave.
Like the anti-capitalist market, the rebellion market, massive markets. They're huge markets. And so if you can just control what those people put into their brains and what they feel and what they keep on repeating, then why not do it through music, through the art? You control people through the art they consume. You are what you consume. And so if you just go, hey, look, rebels, here's a song about how everything sucks and society sucks and capitalism sucks and your mom sucks and your dad sucks. And, like everything is right there packaged for them with the energy they need and want.
My mom sucks, huh?
Remember who the right was in the 90s, though. It was sensible to be on the left in the 90s because when the left was about saving water and picking up litter and being nice to people, it wasn't about all the things that are going on now. Like, even the political correct movement in 96 kind of made sense.
Well, it's part of the hyper-normalization. You start off reasonable, and then you gradually get more and more radical over the decades. Like you can't start going, oh, yeah, like gay rights. You start with gay rights, and then like in 40 years, you introduce like chopping off your dicks to kids. Like it takes decades to actually normalize that enough where the generation after generation will go, no, I'm going to go further than what my parents did. I'm going to go further than what my parents did.
I also would argue that Andrew's point might be
brought in.
Even though I don't think.
Sorry, I didn't understand. I didn't hear you.
I want to hear Andreas.
Well, I was just thinking, like, Rage Against the Machine I do agree is like communist propaganda, but like not exactly, because communism, there's a lot of great commie Russian punk bands that are awesome. It's just the whole, like, it's actually establishment music, in my opinion, because it's telling you to go with what is the state, even though the state is pretending to be the social conscious state. No, it was. It's saying Rage Against the Machine, but realistically, it was totally with what the new world order was building the entire time. And that's what's kind of, because it's telling you, you know, to rage against the old system that's being taken over and co-opted, because there used to be a free society. The machine was the free industrial complex, the liberal democracy, and to replace that with the social rules and it's not anarchy that they wanted. I mean, right. So, but I would agree also with Andrew instead that, like, for instance, like Limp Bizkit, a band named after a fraternity hazing ritual, a fraternity ritual, right? Like that you eat like a semen soaked biscuit or whatever. That is pushing for even further. What's the word? Like the Hot Topic America, where it's a more fascistic, inclusive.
Tried to haze me once, and we ended up fighting. And I was
right. If you look
at Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Korn, these things like that, they were so state. You know, the MTV, Paramount, Viacom, like they push for people to buy that stuff. You know,
American Idiot, right?
Yeah, they want American Idiots to buy that stuff. And it worked in a lot of ways.
The thing is that if you call something American Idiot, people will feel smart for buying it. Like, it's about American idiots. I'm aware of them. I'm not the American idiot. You know.
That was during George W. Bush's second election, though. Remember what was going on at the time with the war in Iraq?
I'm fully aware. Of course.
And Bush was not.
Wasn't that then?
Republican like
you know, like
now.
if you look,
it's the 1900s.
You know, like if you look at the name of Rage Against the Machine. By virtue of being a fan of it, there's a virtue signaling aspect of it. You're going, I am raging against the machine. It's like me wearing this Matrix shirt. Oh, I'm aware of the Matrix. You know, like there's a way, this is like a display of like, yeah, I rage against the machine by listening to this music that the machine gave me. You know, basically, just like I am rage against the Matrix by watching the Matrix and wearing the shirts they sold to me.
So, like, Rage Against the Machine ends with the fall of the Twin Towers, and then so does Smashing Pumpkins, and so did Limp Bizkit. So, I think it was Timothy just brought up. So, I'll explain. Timothy brings this up that Limp Bizkit shot a video on the Twin Towers 2 days before the planes hit the rolling. I don't know if it was shot then, but I remember it came out at that time, and we were watching it and then all of a sudden, September 11th, he says, I'm so sorry that we are promoting all this hate. I'm so sorry. And I forgive us for ever promoting this hate. We'll never promote this hate again. That's the thing. And Fred Durst starts making covers of Behind Blue Eyes. No one knows what it's like. Like, what happened to Limp Bizkit? Simultaneously.
What hate, though?
Well, I mean, that's what's ironic because
aimless aggression, really.
You don't give a damn about our generation, our generation.
Fred Durst, it was just angry music. It wasn't directed at anybody.
No.
Directed at anyone.
Well, it's a thing. It's like interpreted for the crowd. Like the crowd interprets the hate. Like
you don't care about our generation.
A lot of people right after 9/11 saying some real fucked up racist things in public, sometimes on television and shit.
Now I know why you want to hate me. Now I know why you want to hate me.
Smashing Pumpkins.
Because all I've known is hate lately.
So Smashing Pumpkins, they changed the name of they created a new band called Zwan. That came out, formed in 2001, I think September 12th or something like that. They started Zwan, and they said, all right, we're never going to make Smashing Pumpkins ever again. We're going to make this positive, right, exactly. All of this perfect circle, everything, all this kind of alternative to the music that was before, and they kind of used the Twin Towers collapse as this new period of time, like Anno Domini.
It's a new world order.
Something about 9/11 nobody really talks about. Like every time before 9/11, I would turn on the TV, I would see my hometown. I lived in New York, and it was cool. And after that day, barely every other show was either filmed in California or Miami, and this, that, and the other. There was like barely ever in a show. Even if shows were set in New York before that, they also suddenly moved, a lot of them. And it was kind of depressing.
Yeah, well, you can't have like dramas about like
two broke girls.
Well, now annoyingly enough, you have all these terrible shows being filmed in New York that makes terrible people want to come to New York, and I don't know, shit up the
Sure.
past.
The thing is,
I like
the
it,
thing is, I agree though, Morris, that there's, there is an aspect that culture, like people generate art, right? Like people naturally will just create art as part of culture, and it will reflect deeper truths that are important to speak about. The thing is, corporations will capitalize on it, like for sure.
That's what I'm saying too, though. It's about capitalization. So, like if they can accept money from you because you like the art, or they can accept money from the government because
the thing
they
is,
like
by capitalize, I don't just mean money. Capitalize means more than just money. Capitalize means like using something to the maximum of its usefulness in every facet, basically.
To exploit in the non-negative sense.
It's like if you know that what you're going to do is going to have a psychic ripple, might as well exploit the psychic ripple. Like if you know it, if you can.
But if they're not going to earn $1 doing that, I doubt their motivations.
It depends on what. Some things don't need it, but if you have a Coca-Cola commercial at every corner, like there's a reason for that.
Dollars. Yeah,
it's
Coca-Cola did.
It's not just about money, though. It's about making it. It's about making it be part of your subconscious. It's just there, and you put things in people's subconscious all the time. Eventually you can, if you look at Slipknot, they have literally an album called the Subliminal Verses. And the reason they do is because they're like, hey, there's fucking subliminal messages everywhere. And they do affect you.
Is it possible that a lot of the large media organizations stop having references to like explosions and violence and like large media events? Like something that was redone in what was the movie about the blue and the green monster with one eye? Monsters, Inc. There was a scene where after they released some sort of like catastrophe, like a building exploded behind them and it was supposed to be used for comedic effect. Like, I can't believe all that boom happened type shit. And they had to edit it out where it was like some sort of a ray gun teleporting the area out of the area. And it just didn't really make sense, but it was because of 9/11. They just didn't want to remind people of things like that because it was really fresh in our heads, especially like I could see the towers burning and falling from where I was standing. I was in Brooklyn at the time. The things were very tall. I could see them clearly. When I left my house that morning, I looked back up my block before I turned the corner and looked at the towers before I went to school. That was how present they were in all of our lives. And to see them burning and falling literally from the library of the school I was in when I was in 7th grade was, like, I wouldn't say traumatic, but it really affected us. And like, of it. So like, if you're a company that wants to sell media and earn money, you're just going to delete all the references to that stuff, regardless of what the artist's original intent was.
The thing is that it depends because it's all about the which stage. Like if you're going to make a war movie, you're still going to have those things, right? Because the point is to combat those things. But if you're in a kids movie, then of course you're going to remove all that shit. Like even in Lilo and Stitch, at some point they were flying a plane and they're like, oh, we're going to crash the plane. And they're like, no, we're going to change it into a spaceship because it's going to remind people of 9/11. And like even Donnie Darko, the reason Donnie Darko didn't come out in theaters is because it's about a plane crash. And so they made it a DVD only release and cassette only release. And so
it was in theaters for a week. I actually saw it in theaters.
There was an episode of SpongeBob that they got rid of.
Only a limited, but the point is that like they removed these things from media that where it wasn't appropriate, but they left it in certain places because they still needed to shape people's perception of these things enough. Through these media.
Have you noticed? He did the exact.
Like, I don't know if you remember the show. It was a Person of Interest. Have you ever watched Person of Interest? Like Person of Interest is about a guy who develops a machine, an AI that watches everyone in the world. And so it's what Julian Assange, Assange and Snowden were talking about basically years before all that came out. And so this is about people who know about this program and use it to stop terrorist acts and like horrible crimes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they had seen that. If people in like the propaganda department saw that, I'm like, yeah, that promotes ideas that we want to be in the zeitgeist. So we're going to money
based on the content of that
by pushing
based on the content of that show, the person had to know some stuff. Like in retrospect, you watch that show and you're just like, okay, like for sure there's something there. I don't know if it was like a psyop, but it like at least the person knew some stuff. Like for sure.
Don't you find it?
What was Chris gonna say? Go ahead, Chris.
I was like, what you were mentioning before about the sanitation of imagery that could evoke like things that'll remind you of 9/11. Don't you think it's weird for COVID? They did the exact opposite of that. It's like as soon as it passed, like you just saw it referenced in shows, movies, like since the pandemic or since since COVID hit, like they'll reference it in passing, no problem. They compared to like what you were saying about 9/11.
Massive stress response whenever I think about it. I don't like that shit.
They actually tried to cut out like Cobra Kai. They said that they were going to intentionally have a pandemic-free universe, and a lot of the shows they've kind of said they'll say this was before, this was after, but they don't really show the pandemic in the show. Although right before the pandemic, there were a lot of shows created that were about the pandemic, right? Essentially, and there's so many shows that, for instance, that we were just talking about Isle of Dogs from Wes Anderson, which is about like a dog flu in a quarantined, isolated Japanese island, you know, that all these dogs are getting this flu at. And then there was that show with the babies that have like animal features and the whole world's dying out, except for, you know, these like little kids that are all like animal mutants. And there was just so many pieces that were coming out at that time right before COVID. But similarly with September 11th, you had a complete shift in the zeitgeist. September 10th, the kind of media was still that 1999 Marilyn Manson apocalyptic awesomeness. And you had like Hedwig and the Angry Inch and Donnie Darko in theaters. I remember that week. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden after that, it was like Smashing Pumpkins and Limp Bizkit were like self-quitting. They were going to stop themselves and apologize for existing. And that the whole world was coming together into this forced synthetic nationalism, where all of a sudden we'd see you never seen an American flag in California until September 12th. Then all of a sudden it was just crazy. It was like American flags on trucks and things like that in California, you know, this kind of false nationalism that emerged because we hated us for our freedom. So that made you think, oh yeah, we do have freedom. We should love our freedom. And it was interesting how everything shifted.
Things could have gotten really dangerous after 9/11, the way Americans were talking, though. I remember people that I knew even on my block were saying things that were just like kind of crazy. Like we could have gone to like a lot of different wars after that. And I think the goal was to get rid of the anger. Like when I think about 9/11 now, so I get just randomly reminded of it, like it makes me angry that that happened. I'm still mad about it. And I still think that something needs to be done about it to this day, let alone the pandemic. God forbid, I don't even think I'll ever get over those things either. So I think like that was probably the best thing that they could have done was like maybe like have everybody chill out and think rationally for a little while, because like
we're living in Kid Rock.
I'll put that antenna up on that tower. Like how am I not supposed to want to fucking kill somebody over that? You know?
Andrew, you're
how that happened.
We've got to pick our fights carefully.
Doesn't seem like a hard one.
When it comes to the sanitization of violence and all that, I noticed lately I keep seeing ads for like video games, but they censor them. So like, you know, I see ads for like Assassin's Creed, and then the ad is literally going like, who has the best like assassination or kill? And then they have like a really badly edited moment of them doing the assassination, and they never actually show the assassination. They never actually show any violence. I agree. The thing is, it makes for very bad ads, basically, if you're trying to make a game about assassinations and then you don't don't talk about the assassinations and then not show them, you know? And like,
I don't want to be subject to stuff like that without asking for it. You know?
I oppose all advertising personally. Like, for the most part, most advertising is dog shit that is just there to literally brainwash us. That's what I think. It's like you get entertainment for like 12 minutes, 2 minutes of ads. You know, and it's like it's the cycle, the programming cycle, and now it's like it's different. It's more and more saturated, and it's dumber. And the ads are a clear sign of idiocracy. In my opinion.
I don't even see it as that bad. Like it's just a bunch of people trying to earn their dinner. That's okay.
You might be American.
I don't want to see it. I'm willing to pay the network that's using ads to support themselves. Like I pay for YouTube Premium, so I don't see ads on it. And I've been hearing that like people have this thing that they're saying YouTube is hypocritical for allowing ads to be more explicit than the actual videos they're on. But the people who are making the ads are the ones paying for the network to exist. So the people who are making the ads, they dictate the content that can appear in the ad, not the network and not the video creator. And the video creator doesn't have a say if the advertiser doesn't want to put their ad on their video.
Basically, the problem is that gives way too much power to the advertiser, because it goes, hey, you guys don't have to follow the standards of everyone else. And like if you if you look at the YouTube ad content, it would have never passed on television.
And let's go. Actually, wait. Because the other thing about that is like, what does pass on television? Because who does the ads? Like, who's allowed to run ads? So you have CNN telling you, hey, the pandemic, everything's fine, and we have this wonderful medicine that's working really well, and there's absolutely no problems with it. Let's cut to commercial break, and then there'd be like 36 pharmaceutical companies that are making all the ads are made by big pharma.
Just to clarify, though. I don't oppose advertising like at its original concept of like, here, I have a thing. I'm going to expose it to other people so they can see the thing and then they'll buy the thing. Like, that's a whole other thing. That's, that's the old way. Now, this whole system, including digital content, this is a whole other world of controlling and implanting ideas and trying to like create frustration and create different reactions.
I think it's similar though.
Like if you had a picture in a newspaper that said like, we sell washing machines. Okay, good. That's cool. Like that's fine by me. But if it's an ad every fucking 4 videos that's going like, we sell washing machines and like you should really be more open to black people or whatever, like it's trying to fill things with trying to compound all these messages.
It's big pharma, so it's crazier because if you're saying with YouTube,
it's a multi-layered system.
I'm not allowed to talk about certain things because otherwise ads won't want to play on the show. Well, then take that to the logical conclusion, which is that the television can't tell you about certain things because big pharma doesn't want you. They won't advertise on your show unless you don't say certain things. So we're in this controlled situation. And it's not just for buying washing machines.
Could you imagine if you get this
for education?
Could you imagine if you get this if you get this whole market, this underground market of since all these corporations just get blocked out of traditional advertising channels, they have to go to degenerate podcasters like us. It's like, please advertise our dick pills, please advertise our shit, advertise your men's underwear.
Louis Chewy, is that what it's called?
And they'll send it to us for free, and then just hoping that we try it out and be like, see, it works, and then you tell your audience about it, make a quick buck. I mean,
or it's a scam like
baby dog holding an apple.
It's like honey scams. Like if you look at the actual advertising system, so many of them are scams. Bitcoin,
but the advertising is
AI.
The product does it's a scam.
The advertising is part of the scam system. Like it's all part of that system. So
and all the pharmaceuticals are just so that we're more productive workers. Even if you take half of Viagra before performing in sports, it is supposed to enhance your performance. This is a real
badass.
Which kind of loops back to Chris is super big into semen retention.
Imagine just rock hard, just breaking records.
Well, that's why they just take half because
for bodybuilding. I would recommend Cialis over Viagra because it lasts longer and
Blue Chew, bro. Blue Chew, you just microdose it. That's
God
it.
bless
Take a whole dose of Cialis and watch how much more your muscles actually engorge with blood. It doesn't only work on one part of your body.
I just spent a couple bucks here. Holding down, please.
Hold on. Apparently, if you watch pornography while exercising, it'll also help.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you could also just look at a cute girl in the gym while you're lifting.
Yeah, but that's creepy, So, but that is functionally
only if she's not looking at you too.
Don't stare at people in the gym.
What do you guys think?
There should be a gym just for that.
What do you guys think about? What do you guys think about BlackRock buying the Panama Canal? Did you see this?
Oh, so that's what all the news is.
I support whatever BlackRock does.
I mean, I feel like you have to bring. I don't want to only talk about news ever, obviously, but it's this seems like this is the thing. You got a bunch of people that get so patriotic about a nonsense issue that's really all about bringing everything back to the corporate oligarchy anyway. And it's oh man, China can't own the Panama Canal. We have to. But who are we, Kemosabe? We're gonna give it to BlackRock, and so everything is going to BlackRock, and BlackRock's going to be having all of their products going through the Panama Canal, right? So they're going to control. Isn't that kind of the vibe that we're getting? It's going to be a one world economy. That's BlackRock is centralizing all capitalism.
Sounds like they're just making the Panama Canal the target of the next possible thing.
They're going to build another canal through Nicaragua. They're working on.
If an American company,
the next Pearl Harbor.
If an American company runs it, the American company pays taxes. If a Chinese company runs it, they don't.
A lot of big guys don't have to pay taxes, especially if you're an international American company or Banana Republican,
You get subsidized.
Banana Republican.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a banana Republican. I get it. I mean, like if you think about it, America's a place to make some money, but not to live forever. It's like New York.
You can vote on how it's controlled.
New York's not a place you're supposed to buy a house. New York's a place you're supposed to spend $3,000 a night, like you just said earlier. We're probably supposed to, in America, use America for an opportunity. But if you win, get out. You're supposed to move to like an island.
Yeah.
Or something,
the thing is, a friend of mine from Brazil tells me how he sees it, and he tells me that he thought people in America were rich because they got a lot of money for their work, and then he realized when he came here that you get a lot of money when you do a lot of work, but you don't keep any of it. It's all a trick to keep everybody running. That's not you're not rich because you get paid a lot.
The machine is
look at Silicon Valley, Those guys are making six figures living in their Tesla because they can't afford a house.
Yeah. He straight up said like he's not richer than he was in Brazil, but the only big difference is that his kids are in a better school than they would have been if they were born there.
Yeah, honestly,
maybe we need more efficiency.
Maybe I'm just like stupid for it or whatever, but as a New Yorker, I would say the biggest unnecessary expenses is always some leisure shit. Like when you go out to eat, when you go out to drink, when you go out to hang out, it's always like those things that are just like ridiculously overpriced. But if you're just like trying to, I guess, sustain yourself, then it's clearly possible. But just something to note, like a lot of these people having a quote unquote rough time, a lot of them love to party, especially living in New York, and partying in New York is fucking expensive.
Right.
Like really.
But that's the social aspect, and that's in part the psychic aspect, because they considering the altered state of consciousness from the drugs and from the alcohol, like these things are part of they're like the lube in the machine, like you gotta go get drunk if you're gonna work your 9 to 5 that'll help you afford that rent and all that. It's part of this whole system of, okay, well, you gotta always consume, you gotta always be in that sort of cycle,
Well, the system also have like has a certain number of people working their asses off for no benefit to themselves, and that's how you.
There's also converging classes in the party scene. You have the people who can afford to go out because they have like a huge financial safety net, and then you see the people who are like, spending half of their paycheck escaping the problems of their difficult job or whatever, going out and partying too. Seeing the people who have the safety net is like, oh, I got to party as hard as these people. Meanwhile, they don't know that those people have a huge safety net, and you're fucking spending your safety net trying to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then you end up somewhere.
You're muted, Andreas.
Sorry, do you guys remember in January of 2019? So remember, it was late December 2019 that COVID hit. But do you remember the January Golden Globes where they had around the Academy Awards, all the actors? One of the shticks was Andy Samberg said that we were having doctors come to inoculate everybody, and they had these fake doctors going around with fake needles, and they were fake inoculating all the actors just to see how they would act about getting inoculated at the beginning of 2019. Do you remember this? Yeah, do you remember that?
That's just in poor taste. I don't care what the context is.
No, because this was like way before COVID, so it was like it was like a shit test, really. Both for the actors, if they're going to play along, if they're part of the system, but also for
I feel bad for Andy Samberg. He seems like such a nice person.
How
Dude, you know what? I don't anymore for a couple of reasons. One, he lived in Santa Cruz, and it pisses me off that he's really exploiting my culture. Two, he ended up married to Joanna Newsom, and Joanna Newsom didn't sign my vinyl one time. And I just had my molars removed, and I'm still upset about it.
Look, I'm sorry you had to experience this trauma.
Thank you.
I don't feel.
I mean, Joanna Newsom, I still like, is what's sad about that. I can't listen to her anymore because that made me like left a bitter taste in my mouth. But come on, Joanna Newsom with her harp, it's great.
Hells yeah.
That's all.
Trying to see if Fauci has any family that works in media.
Dude, I'm just kind of hopeful because he was pardoned in the U.S., but that's not the same as because America. It's like he's not pardoned by the United Nations for Geneva Convention war crimes. And so what I'm really hoping for as part of that Russia deal is that we get to have at the end of Starship Troopers and right before Star Trek, there's this idea that the 21st century has more televised hangings than any time in history. I just want, if Star Trek's going to happen, we have to go through it. And if you want world peace, we need that televised tribunal period where everyone's we need another Nuremberg, but it has to be like live reality show Nuremberg. And they got to be taking crimes against humanity's people and just
Can we make them? Can we turn it into like a game show where like
I know I really want them boiling in oil slowly. I know.
No, I'm thinking more like they have to like like sort of a Squid Game kind of thing, like where it's like either fight each other or like play games to the death sort of thing.
No, just hang them over vats of acid and like let people donate money to the victims to drop them.
But I think gamifying it is.
That's the thing. Do you feel like it's wicked and cruel to be unmerciful, or do you think it's essential to teach the next generation the warning? Because if you show that the actual consequences for actions exist, won't you? I mean, so think about there's not a lot of crimes mentioned in the Constitution, right? They don't talk about littering or murder in the Constitution, but they do talk about treason, and it has a defined consequence, right?
Right, but
put them all in a room together. Look, put them all in a room together and tell them whoever consumes the most flesh gets to live.
That's what they do every Oscar party. That's not
just Epstein's Island normal
that's
stuff.
The same thing. No, what we need is like I don't know. I'm wondering because Thomas Jefferson said put the head of the tyrant on the stick every 20 years because it take within a generation they forget. But you have people. If this is the thing, you have the short-sighted, myopic people that are spreading. Maybe we have corrupt people that think, hey, society's not going to punish me spreading. And maybe that is something that we end up needing every generation. Sure.
But the thing is that the problem is that it creates a rebellion aspect because it turns them into martyrs to a degree. Because just through the act of murder and through killing, even if it's justified, some group somewhere down the line will be like, no, they were actually the real heroes and we're actually all oppressed right now, and they're going to romanticize it, just like with Lucifer and Satan and any other that is the equivalent of it. They've done it countless
times. No, you have to assassinate their character first while they're still alive.
Doesn't matter. No. That happens with every propaganda cycle in war. It doesn't change. Hitler was thoroughly run through the mud for a long time, and to this day, people still treat him like a martyr.
He was on Time Magazine 5 times, Time Magazine. It's like it's the thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So were all the people who were going to hang. They were all in prestige in their own way. And so
Man of the Year was just like the most newsworthy person. They weren't saying like this was the greatest person. It was just like this person made the biggest impact.
Some people definitely liked him though.
This fella's okay.
Sure. The problem is idiots, right? Like the problem is idiots will look at that and be like, Man of the Year, that means I should respect this person. Like that's just how simpletons will automatically.
Well, then why did they not allow Steve Jobs to be Man of the Year and they made him Person of the Year? Why did they do the same thing to Trump? They didn't want him to be Man of the Year. Like there's something. I think it is about. It's about impact, but it's also about philanthropy. And I think it's because the Republicans and the Democrats were both socialists at the time. The whole country, the whole world were run by different kinds of socialists. Trotskyites, Stalinites, etc. And imperial benevolent dictators. I disagree, but you know why? Is because you have a difference between positive and negative governance. So negative governance was what the United States was founded on, is the opposite of a social government. We've built it into a positive governance system. Positive governance is what you're talking about. Positive. You're talking about positive governance. Positive governance is where the government gives you things like Social Security and education and promises you things. Negative governance is the idea that a government is retracted from the capacity to interfere with your life in certain ways, right? So the United States was built on negative governments. It's like you're not allowed to interfere with this person's life except for in certain circumstances. We're going to say that, you cannot, they're free in their papers. You're free to be independent of the government. But then the Soviet Union said, well, really, we need to offer people these social services, not because the Soviet Union invented this, but because benevolent dictatorships from monarchies had to emerge as an alternative to despots, because they knew that a despotic king was no longer an option after Napoleon. Once Napoleon introduced nationalism in the statehood, then people were going to require something to keep the revolution from happening. So social services positive governance became an essential part of any dictatorship, right? So dictatorships are always socialist.
So governments
learn Sweden gives you healthcare,
So governments learn to fear the people, basically.
Sort of. I think it's also that because of the potential of the people to be a problem, then what you do is you also read George Bernard Shaw's Intelligent Women's Guide to Socialism. So George Bernard Shaw wrote this whole thing talking about how the rich can avoid getting the plague until the poor get the plague. and then everybody gets the plague. And if the rich kids fall into the poor kids' potholes, then the poor kids, so the best thing to do is to take care of the poor, give them vaccines, clean like horse troughs worth of food with antibiotics in it, and do the streets right so that the rich kids don't suffer, because it's inevitable that they're somehow going to spread to the next person. That's the real concern about the poor, Sorry, I think you were trying to say a bit.
But more importantly than actually providing social services is to have PR for the social system, for government, that'll make people think that they have good social systems. And so dictators can provide systems, but they're usually pretty shitty. And so you have mediocre healthcare, you have mediocre media, you have mediocre everything.
Wait, for dictatorship, you're saying?
Depends on which dictatorship.
I was about to say I almost fundamentally disagree, because most of the time what you have with a dictatorship is you have a elite lordship like the Kingdom of Sweden. I think.
Yeah. You got to have a good PR, right? You got to have a very functional psyop system that'll be able to make
proportional
people fall in line with the social systems and the social services, and have gratitude for them so that they don't overthrow them. Like, it requires a lot of image control and perception control of the systems and the government itself.
Even when they're doing a good job, it requires to have a good PR management system so that they don't get overthrown, because there's always going to be somebody who fires the power.
That's why they got to cure cancer in Cuba, but it still has to be Cuba. They got the cure for cancer, but you don't want to be fucking Cuba.
Every major country had its own vaccine, and then Europe, which counts as one country, because it is.
I feel like what's really sad about Cuba is, the Republicans and the CIA allowed Cuba, and probably Cuba couldn't have existed without the failing of the CIA and the help of the neoconservative Republican Marxists. But it was Obama's administration that invaded, I want to say, Cuba, and used corporatist Pepsi China money to really invade, because up to that point, Cuba was relatively isolated. But from 2008 to 2012, it was the DNC and the Obama administration that destroyed Cuba, and Cuba is nothing like what it was in 2007, right? And Cuba today is far more influenced by everyone else, and we've even seen, like with the USAID, the PSYOP where they created an alternative to Twitter, and they financed this giant social media propaganda campaign for Cuba. It's almost always been socialists that are fighting against other socialists. It's almost never some sort of a revolution of independence from this. And the idea that socialism is bottom up versus top down. So if you're saying that we, the people, are working together to build an infrastructure, that's almost always different than, and often used as an excuse for these dictatorships, which are saying, as a monarchy, I don't want to have to do any work. I'm going to be on a jet ski. I want these people to govern themselves. We'll have a House of Lords and a House of Commons, and the House of Commons can figure out when we're going to patch the potholes, because we need those potholes filled so that the FedEx trucks can go on the street. But we don't really care about the people. We just need it to work. We need the whole, we don't care about the individual. We care about the collective.
Can you have a social program that isn't centrally planned?
Of course, yeah. Distributed, decentralized social services exist already. You can think of the internet as this peer-to-peer, right? And especially internodal system. This is, of course, it has to do with scarcity. And I think that's the other thing that we've learned about in the last 100 years is that technocratic entropy exponentially decreases as technology improves, right? So the more efficient something becomes, the less likely people are going to have to work. So the less efficient it is, the more people will work. And if you do, you can supplement this with taxes or bureaucracy in certain ways. But by this point, we should have the Jetsons, and they stopped that on purpose.
Well, wait, we kind of do have something similar to the Jetsons, because if you go back
to the nightmare sense, because remember, the Jetsons
trying to go to Florida in 1900 or 1925.
When you say the Jetsons, you're talking. Hold on. When you're talking the Jetsons, you have to remember there's two kinds of the Jetsons. One is Spacely Sprockets, and the other is Cogswell's Cogs. So for the Jetson family, what's really going on is he's an indentured servant. His family live in an apartment that they don't really own, and he has to work all the time so he can support his wife's financial capitalist consumption habit. They're consumers that are slaves. They're in a slave state, and that is the Jetsons, right? There's no way that they can take a day off. It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
And there's no reason to work because they have robots. They're just forcing people to work to keep them busy all the time because they think that's healthy.
Well, it could be that they're trying to avoid the Matrix scenario where all the robots replaced all the workers and then eventually the robots overthrow it. So it's like they do have to factor in these things. They're trying to avoid hyper dystopia, basically, like ultimate collapse of everything. That's the thing to avoid, right? So
if you really appreciated the amount of technological progress that has happened so very recently.
No one isn't appreciating it. Everyone is appreciating it for sure. It's just that they're making things be planned obsolescence, and there's a process to it that they realize that the pacing of the way people consume things, it does change. They know that things can be ahead of their time. So if you know that pacing, then you can make hypernormalization happen, and you can actually regulate how people will accept things and process things. And eventually, maybe.
I just want to stress that we literally do live in the Jetsons, though. Like, just because our cars don't fly and our houses aren't 30,000 feet in the air,
live in the Jetsons.
We're not quite there.
You can't say the word literally and then say except that. So
right. I mean, also because
the president in history with the most resources available to him.
We're literally in the Flintstones right now, except minus dinosaurs.
If Mansa Musa had a tooth abscess or wanted the room he was standing in to be a little bit cooler, God would have told him to go fuck himself. You are richer than he is. He was.
Yeah, that's true, but that's different than the Jetsons. It's a nightmare scenario.
Jetsons are richer than us.
Yeah, and robots are already fighting for their own freedom.
Look, I've seen my old apartment. The walls were falling apart in the Jetsons. That shit would have never happened. The robots would have been patching that shit up like fucking crazy.
We only see the Jetsons house. We never see. That's the thing. If you remember we talked about this at some point. The Jetsons and the Flintstones. Jetsons and the Flintstones are simultaneous, right? The Flintstones are living below. The Jetsons are living above. There's a nuclear holocaust, and it's essentially Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. And you see
so the time machine in the Flintstones meet the Jetsons wasn't real?
It's not a time machine.
Just going into a box and just going up and down?
Yeah. Straight up. Yeah.
Straight up.
Watch it again.
Straight down.
Watch it again. It's not a time machine. It literally, they're just living in the same world, and it's just that they're separated. It's literally Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Yeah. We're very close, but we're not there.
What was it? Jules Verne, the time machine?
Scooby-Doo. The Scooby-Doo.
H.G. Wells time machine.
H.G. Wells, that's who it was.
I think another one was like a movie Elysium. It was a Matt Damon movie.
I've seen it.
So that's basically like the same concept.
We're past 2 hours. Let's do close it up. But yeah, Chris, continue.
Yeah. No. Let's close it up. I think Sean should close it up today.
With what? Sorry. I really think we're much more progressed than people will acknowledge. The fact that we live in modern times and the fact that you're born in modern times means you don't realize how many things that people even 50 to 100 years ago just straight up didn't have. Like, God forbid you needed penicillin in the late 1800s or the early 1800s. I forget exactly what.
Not really, because you definitely had penicillin in the late 1800s because it was just a mold that grew on sausages, and sausages have been around for 500 years. It was just whether or not you didn't need to extract it. You just need to cut the salami, leave it there. Like, I did this list.
You just did that like a month ago.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, and rocket science is 5,000 years old. So I don't know about this
rocket
idea.
Science is actually pretty simple. It's just trajectory.
All right,
you get I'm gonna
actually debunk what you said by agreeing with you. I'm gonna corroborate your first sentence, which is that is William Gibson, right? The future is already here. It's been here. It's already arrived. It's just not equally distributed yet. And I think that's true. You go to Singapore right now, you're gonna find some Jetsons lifestyle in one of these apartments above the clouds. But that's not for everybody. And there's definitely people living in the Flintstones in Africa while the Jetsons are happening. I mean, that's for sure. We have both ends of the extreme, and we're somewhere in the middle. Maybe not completely in the middle. Maybe we're a little closer to the Jetsons where we're at. But there are a lot of people probably sitting on the ground right now without anything going on. And we're not that different from them.
Sunscreen.
I think we're due for a cultural revolution, like an industrial revolution, really. Like, we're due for an update of the standards of living for everyone. Like how when we all got pipes in our houses, that was a huge upgrade, and it became more and more normal to the point where everyone has it that you can think of. That isn't in a third world country.
Really fixed disease a lot.
So Wakanda forever.
Right. So
they want to have toilets.
So that's the thing, eventually we might be ready for bigger upgrades, and the technology might have been, at least in theory, like developed enough to actually put into practice, but they didn't have the infrastructure yet for it. They didn't have the proper way to make flying cars be something that is so common, and floating houses, all this stuff. Obviously they could do it. They're landing, they're catching rockets out of the sky right now. Like it some of this stuff is at least possible, but
flying cars would never work, because every parking lot would need air traffic control. Otherwise you couldn't land.
Dude, have you seen space truckers?
You just make it all robots. I've seen space truckers. But anyways, you make it all, like, I'm just saying that once the upgrade actually happens, once the new world order actually happens, then like we might see things that are comparable to some of the fiction, the sci-fi that we've seen, and we're already seeing a lot of it. So like it's not to undermine the technology we have now. Of course, anyone who doesn't understand just lacks scope. They can't see. Like if you can't see that we're living in a place, I'm talking to you right now through a camera, like real time.
That's what I really do wonder, though. How much more could we want out of technology than we already really have beyond like?
I want cubic pigs. Cubic pigs from Space Trucker would be really cool.
I don't think that the thing is, what we want isn't the same thing as what the future will want. We have our limits based on our current experience, but like in 2 generations, who knows what they'll be like. Yeah, this is what we should do based on what's happened. Especially if we encounter alien life. Like if we encounter intelligent alien life in the next 100 years, 200 years, people will be like, okay, well, we probably should try to keep up with them, like try to catch up at least, or else they're just going to completely dominate.
I think we're too worried about AI not being intelligent, and we're not worried enough about how humans aren't intelligent. We need to look at intelligence as an emergent phenomenon that may occur, that hasn't completely occurred yet, and isn't equally distributed by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Yeah. Like once we encounter conquerors, we'll be in the same situation as the Aztecs were. We'll have level of technology that is very functional, and we'll be like, yeah, why would we bother going up higher? I think most cultures could make that argument. Really, most cultures could be like, yeah, why would we need to go beyond this? We've survived 1,000 years like this, 2,000 years, 3,000. But
no, I literally asked, what more capability can you ask out of your devices than you've already got?
Oh, like sliders. I want to be able to go from one dimension to another, be part of the breakaway civilization, get inside and outside of time, move from any time to another time, reset and restore. Actually, I want like Windows restore for timelines. Be able to
timelines within the bounds of physics.
Let's go interstellar, baby.
I don't want to be within the bounds of physics. That's what I want my devices to do. Get me outside of the bounds of physics.
You don't want to be Donnie Darko. You don't want to be Donnie Darko. You want to be able to get out of the Donnie Darko trap.
Yeah, but you do want to be Jenna Malone for some reason.
Nuclear energy, then is where we could have the energy available to do things more cheaply. If you want to
be crazy, yeah. I think that's what nukes are going to lead to, is going to be the complete radiation.
Also, we need medical advancement.
We need a change in
language.
Area
technology that's really fallen behind everything else is medical advancement. It's not,
but because we don't have population control advancement, so we don't know how to balance between population control and that's what they say.
That's what they say.
Just make the Department of Education and Big Pharma illegal, and then eventually, I think both education will lead to better medicine, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
people used to be able to read before the Department of Education, and people used to be healthy. People used to get autism and cancer as much.
The only thing the Department of Education does is give the federal government control over your schools. We don't need the federal government controlling schools. I'm sorry, that's the only thing they do.
They should at least buy books, though. I want libraries to replace schools, and I want guns in libraries. All right, Andrew Vega, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, infrastructure in the United States has been steadily declining to subsidize private interests. I mean, look at the high-speed rail that they've been promising in California for the past 30 years. And in that time, China has made a nationwide rail network. And a lot of people's opinions about China are based off of like 30-year-old ideas. It's pretty crazy. But I would really look forward to seeing some inefficiency whittled away, but it's kind of engineered into the system. So we'll see what happens. We're at the precipice of a lot of changes, and it's going to be a painful process. So prepare yourselves.
It'll get worse before it gets better. That's true. And also, happy Ash Wednesday. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah. All right.
What are you grateful for?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone watching. Thank you guys for showing up and chilling. And because I'm just thankful for every day, because tomorrow is literally never guaranteed. We don't have to be alive. We just want to be. So, yeah.
It's a miracle.
Yeah.
Miracles happen every day.
Thank you to all.
Love you all. Love you, bros.
So long as I'm in this Oval Office.